My cheese!
Le fromage?
I don't speak Italian anyway. Everyone, welcome to this episode of the Cheap Seat Critics podcast, where today, as you can see, we are covering. Oh man, let me be like Crimson. The hit classic Disney, magnificent, one of the best films ever created, Atlantis Milo's Return. With me today, we
Indeed.
have.
Hello, everybody. I'm one of your hosts, Sikiki Rider.
I'm Crimson Maroon.
And I'm Sprinks. And hey, if you're listening from, oh boy, anywhere but Atlantis, let's go with that. Sorry to exclude, but hey, you can find us on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, Blue Ski, Blue Sky. Did I ever say Twitter? Maybe I did, but maybe you don't know what that is. So X. We got LetterBoxd, where we have our average out graphs and numbers or whatever that doohickey is over there if you're interested in the math. And we got visual side of things on YouTube and Rumble, where you could be watching from or listening, I guess, for that matter as well. Thank you. But we do have a ton of audio platform stuff way out there too. But yeah, we covered back in season 8, Decade. I should have gone back and got the episode number. I think it's like 41, 42, something like that. We covered Atlantis, The Lost Empire for the 2000s movie in Decades. And now we're going to the sequel. I know it took a while. I think it's been over a year, but we got there eventually. Let's start with histories. Usually is like kind of the sole host. It's kind of a pattern to go last, so I'm gonna throw my hat in the ring and I'll go first. I've seen this movie twice now. One time a long time ago, and once for the pod. And boy, can I tell you, I don't remember. I remember half of the first kind of third. I remember the idea of what the second third of this movie is. I don't remember the plot or anything, just like where it is and what's happening. And I had no memory whatsoever of all about the third part of this movie. And that's about it. I've seen the first movie plenty of times, but yeah. And with that, let's go with Ryder.
Alrighty. So, being the great historian I am, I've obviously have seen this movie a total of 0 times before the podcast. My history with the franchise as a whole is I've seen Atlantis once for the podcast and once again this morning before the podcast. But as for the sequel, I've only watched it once for the podcast.
Okie dokie. And that leaves you, Crimson.
I don't remember how many times I said I saw the first one, so go back to our first coverage because I don't remember. But it was a few times that I've seen the first one. I've not seen it since we covered it a year ago. As for the sequel, I didn't even know it existed until we covered the first one. So I hadn't seen it. And I did not go out of my way to watch it till this point for the podcast. So I've seen it once. And since we've covered Atlantis, I have procured one Milo Thatch little like Disney figure thingy majigger.
Ooh, fancy.
Yeah, that's about it.
Is it actually licensed or is it a?
It's like one of those like Disney mystery figure things.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Well, with that, we'll go into facts. I have here. The initial release film was May 20th, 2003. Its runtime is tricky because different sites and places say different times. So some places say it's an hour and 20 minutes. I believe that's including credits. Other places say an hour and 10 minutes. I don't know if that's excluding credits. Disney Plus itself has like an hour and 24 minutes. So time's kind of all over the place with this movie. The budget for it, couldn't find an exact actual number, but it's estimated to be anywhere between 90 to 120 million. And then its box office was not a thing because this was a direct-to-video film. It has a rating of G. Its genre is family adventure, and it had 3 directors. First one being Victor Cook, with known things such as Scooby-Doo Mystery Incorporated, where he directed 38 episodes, the Lilo and Stitch series with 31 episodes, and the Buzz Lightyear of Star Command series with 20 episodes. Next director was Toby Sheldon, who directed The Return of Jafar and 9 episodes of the Aladdin TV series. And then the third director is Tad Stones, who also, I guess, co-directed The Return of Jafar, from what I found, as well as Buzz Lightyear of Star Command: The Adventure Begins film, and 2 Hellboy animated TV movies, Blood and Iron and Sword of Storms.
The first
Now,
guy has good credentials there.
yeah, and I'm not one to usually go, and I usually just focus on the directors, but this film also had 3 credited writers on IMDb, but in the film it had 6 screenplay writers credited, but I only chose one of them because I thought it would interest Ryder here himself. That one of the writers was Henry Gilroy, who wrote Mass Effect Paragon Lost, 21 episodes of Star Wars The Clone Wars, as well as 1 episode from Batman the Animated Series. And I also saw credit, I didn't write it down, but also saw in his repertoire, he also did episodes of the Justice League animated series.
That's awesome. And a shame.
Well, I just figured you might like that little detail,
I did.
being that I'm not one to.
I would be curious. I'd be
Uh,
curious to see what episodes of Clone Wars he wrote, because Clone Wars is a very, very mixed bag show. There are episodes that are really good, and there are episodes that are really, really bad.
Oh man, are there 21 bad ones?
The show has over like 120 something episodes, so there's like
Oh,
plenty of bad
very
ones.
feasible.
Yeah, it's very feasible that all of his
Uh,
episodes are bad ones, for all I know.
Could be. With that, I'll go into the little fun facts. I only found a couple for this movie. First one being, this was the final film role of Florence Stanley, who voiced Mrs. Packard. She unfortunately died of a stroke months after production ceased.
Damn.
Good downer fact there.
Yeah. Another fact with voice acting, for unknown reasons, Milo's voice actor from the original, Michael J. Fox, did not return to voice Milo in the sequel, which is pretty apparent.
I didn't think it was that bad until I started getting Johnny Test vibes later.
Yeah, Johnny Test or Ratchet and Clank is all I get here.
Yeah, it's a thing.
Next fact I have is this was the last Disney Toon Studios film involved with Disney Television animation in a direct-to-video film.
Wow.
And then the chunkiest fun fact I have here, and the last one, Disney assumed that Atlantis: The Lost Empire would be a success, so much that they had lined up a sequel film titled Shards of Chaos, and a spin-off TV series called Team Atlantis, as well as an underwater attraction at Disneyland, which I'm guessing was the original idea to take over for 10,000 Leagues Under the Sea ride that they then turned into the Voyage, Finding Nemo's
Nemo.
Voyage.
Yeah.
Yeah. Instead, with having the original Lost Empire film getting 84 million of its $100 million dollar budget in North America and 186 worldwide, audience take these with a grain of salt, found them online, that could be false or maybe, I don't know. Anywho, the ride, the sequel, and the show were all canceled, essentially. So Disney had already created a few episodes of the Team Atlantis show, which they strung together, added some continuity padding to make it look like a movie, and released it as Milo's Return.
Yeah, I could feel that, unfortunately. Which is all right. Yeah, I could feel that.
It's a shame.
It's a shame, because there is something here. Like, it's not a complete and utter mess. There is something here. I can get the semblance of a season-long arc, but it sucks because I think they wasted a good IP.
I bet, yeah.
I'm just sad it underperformed the original, so where we couldn't get an actual movie.
Or a Disneyland ride.
Yeah, but one is a lot more accessible than the other.
That is also true.
That is true. As much as
with
I
that,
would have
I
loved
guess
to do the Disneyland one. I've never. I guess this is kind of another history check for. I know exactly what ride this would be at Disneyland because I used to go to Disneyland all the time. I haven't. I've never was on the Thousand Leagues Under the Sea ride, and I was also never on the Finding Nemo ride. I never was on the rebrand of it either. It was just
oh,
never. It was just never a ride I was ever on.
it's one of those rides where I think I'm too tall to ride it.
Yeah, I'm probably too tall to ride it now too. It's tucked. It's the because if I'm thinking the right one, it's the one that's tucked underneath the monorail, right by the car ride.
A bit.
Yeah,
It's in Tomorrowland by Autotopia. So,
yeah. Okay.
anywho, with that, do either of you two have any additional facts to add on?
Um, did you know visually they took a downgrade?
What?
I don't know.
No.
Crimson, I clearly did.
Yeah, just letting you know.
No, I don't
Uh,
believe you.
Not just visual one, but also animation shortcuts.
Animation
plenty of those.
shortcuts.
Yeah,
Made it might have also taken a script writing hit too. Just saying.
Well, yeah. Okay, with that, we'll go into the coverage of Atlantis, Milo's return. We're doing a 3-act structure, popcorning within the acts. If you've seen this movie before, I think you're like, oh, well, that seems easy because it's going to be episode 1, 2, 3. But we're going from the beginning of the movie up to pretty much the end of the, oh man, I have to pronounce it correctly, the Kräken story.
I will not be referring to it as Kräken, by the way.
Yeah.
I will call it Kräken.
It's getting under my skin. I was getting annoyed by how
Oh,
much it was
yeah.
everyone calling it a Kräken.
Don't worry, I have it in my notes. I literally just stop and go, all right, it's Kraken. I'm calling it Kraken for the podcast. I'm not gonna mispronounce Mr. Linguist over here.
Yeah. Now it would have
In
been,
this
I guess,
universe, it's pronounced
it
Kräken.
would have been okay and acceptable if like one of the characters did it, and that's like there's their accent or like the joke of how they pronounce it. But the sake that everyone calls it this, it was too much.
Yeah, and Miles the Linguist mispronounced
Yeah,
it.
and that's how he pronounces it. All right. Well, with this, let's go with the writer. You can start us off.
Alrighty. I will start us off with the whale. I when I first saw the scene, actually no, I'll say that for later. It's kind of a mini thing. First thing I noticed was they kind of no, it's not. That's not the right word. It's they Kida's kind of sexualized in the first film. They definitely toned that down for this one. I don't have an issue with it because I think most of the outfits she wears outside of the one at Atlantis, I think she actually look really cool. But I was aghast, I guess, for the first few minutes of the film.
It wears a coat.
Well,
Wow.
Ryder, keep in mind this isn't a Kida movie.
I wouldn't say this is a Milo movie either.
No, this is an Atlantis movie.
This is an
I wouldn't
Atlantis
say that
movie.
either.
Yeah,
No, it doesn't.
it is a film that has characters that we should theoretically recognize. There we go.
Though I would say this is more of an adventure movie than Shark Tale. So there's a little merit I can give to it.
That's true.
Potentially, I need to rewatch the movie to say that. Don't remember well enough.
Yeah, it's just a small detail I noticed. That she's not as sexualized as she was in the first one. And obviously, since this is kind of more made for TV, it makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Molt still does a little, I guess, sexual situation thing with like 3 Atlantean guards.
Yeah, and they just
Presumably.
run around and beat him up.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was I like that because that was actually a continuation from the first film. I do appreciate those little beats where I realize my characters are still here somewhere.
Yeah, that's something I'm going to compliment on this sequel is I do feel like all the characters are still themselves. Maybe minus Milo a little bit, but I liked that they dug into everyone's specialties. They focused a lot on Mole in this movie / show.
Yeah.
which I'm not complaining about. I mean, it was relevant to what we saw throughout the movie
Yeah, I have a
for most
I
of
I
it.
have a very similar compliment in that sense. I think Milo's the only one that's relatively damaged continuity wise, and since I'm fresh off the first film from this morning, I actually like how everyone's still there's nothing damaging about the characters, so I like that they are still themselves for a majority of the film, and I think that's one of the bright spots that we have.
Uh, I think I have Milo as damaged in this one.
I said, yeah, that's what I said. I think Milo's the exception to that. I think there's
Oh,
some
okay.
damage at him. I'm not entirely sure where it lies specifically yet, but I can definitely feel like he got damaged. I'm just gonna be a little bit picky on what
Okay.
specifically.
I
Uh,
have Milo as the Atlantean expert linguist, and that's what he's been studying forever, and especially from his father or his grandfather, and like that's what got him into like the interest in Shepherd's Journal and everything for the first one. And this one, it just feels like he's like, oh, that looks like Atlantean, but he can't make things out. And then there's just parts where it's like, oh, this is like connected to Atlantis. And he goes, oh, of course, and it comes to his mind for plot convenience rather than sharing
yeah,
it with the group.
there is definitely an element of I find that more as a plot issue than I do a Milo issue, but it's like the plot damage got hurled into Milo as well because it's coming from his mouth. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
So
but
yeah.
I still feel like that's a written
Oh,
change into Milo that damages him.
yeah, I agree. I will not be disputing that. I agree. There's definitely an element of that in this film. Um,
Well, the fact that this was made in like a TV show format where you have to like condense information for a 25-minute ish episode. Yeah, I'd say Milo's intelligence took a little bit of hit of like, oh, cool, Atlantean thing. Let me explain what that is to cool Atlantean thing, without explaining what it is. It's just
Yeah,
yeah.
there's something in the third part of this um, breakdown we have that I thought was a big damage to the first two parts that Milo does. But we covered, I guess, in this timeline now, currently, Sinbad was last week, and Crimson, I think you brought up how you weren't a fan of Spike in Sinbad. Am I remembering that correctly?
The dog.
that is correct. I think
Yeah.
there was too
Yes.
much spike. Yeah.
I think Obi in this movie is tenfold more than Spike in Sinbad.
Was that the name Obi?
Obby.
I wrote
It's
Dobby.
like Obby.
It's
Obby.
it's Obby. Uh,
Ah,
It was too much.
Um, I don't know if I agree with that because I do feel like it was more relevant to the plot here, and wasn't on the same level of intelligence as Spike. Because Spike's intelligence is partially of why I was annoyed by him because he could just understand English and do anything that was asked of him. This feels like an animal, and it kind of protects the people it cares about. And I don't think there was too much focus on it, really. It's clearly something they threw in, like, "Oh, kids, cool little thing. We can make a toy out of this," type deal. But
Yes, that did come
that's
across.
clearly the point behind it.
But I just feel like Obby got more screen time than some of the team members. Obby definitely
Certainly
got more screen
some,
time than
yeah,
Sweets,
yes, more than Sweets, more than what was the old lady's name
Packard,
again?
Cookie.
Yeah, yeah. But then again, some of those characters weren't really necessary for the stories being
Yeah,
told.
more than Whitmore.
I mean, Whitmore had about as much screen time in this as he did in the first movie.
That's about true.
Whitmore continues to be the facilitator of the adventures. Um, I think I lean towards Obby. I accepted more because I guess it was a fantasy animal, and I don't think his intelligence level is quite at the level of Spike. I think what bugged me about him was the fact that he was immune to lava. So I'm just like, my question is, what in the evolutionary fuck happened?
I
uh,
was kind of with the fantasy creature esque. I was kind of cool with the idea of the lava, especially how it shows like the color. I guess a little nice thing to the animation of like the color of the heat actually dying, cooling off.
yeah.
Um, but
The
he is still interacting with things that would die in lava in some situations. So those are all nicks to me.
yeah, I think yeah, Obby's for the most part's okay. I think they might have overdone it with having him save the group at the end by having him bite the ropes. I think that is a very that almost crossed the line for me and being a very highly specific thing that he needs to bite down on. But the benefit of that is that they show him that he just loves to eat just anything. That's kind of been
True.
that
And
was the only moment where it almost kind of crossed the line for me, I think.
he also just flexes out of his own.
Yeah. There his I would That's my biggest issue with the scene is he just was able to escape for no reason. But obviously it's for plot armor and shit like that, and that's in Act 3, so
Yeah. Let's see. I'll go with something. The I guess it is the animation cut. I mean, the first one that really came to me was when Kita's on the I don't know, fish cycle, whatever it's called, the flying things, and she's coming towards the screen, but the angle of her glider isn't changing; it's just enlarged.
There was a lot of shortcuts on that ride. There's parts where the vehicle is moving because it's like a 3D asset and she's 2D, and then she's not moving at the correct pace of the vehicle. Parts that what's the dog's name? I wrote Dobie
Obby.
in my
It's
notes.
Obby.
Hobby.
Obby. Obby, where they stretch out the asset instead of actually drawing a new frame for him, and it looked awful.
Yeah. I think the
And
worst one of just like size problems was them trying to do a cool shot of when the Kraken's chasing them underwater through like that trench. Their ships are stretching and pulling, and the rocks are changing, and the Kraken's tentacles are shrinking and growing, and that was too much.
Yeah.
yeah, lots of animation
That's
shortcuts. But
Yeah.
yeah,
To
go
kind of
for it.
piggyback off of that specifically, because again, rewatched the first one this morning. The animation in their escape from the Leviathan in the first film was very smoothly animated.
Yeah, especially blending the 3D asset with the 2D assets.
Yeah.
Yep, definitely. They had a movie budget, which is Spriggs. When you said this was 90 to like 150 million estimate, I was taken
90 to 120 is the
120.
closest I could find.
I find that hard to believe, but I mean, it's Disney. They don't know how to spend money very well, so I don't know. Yeah, the first like animation thing I wrote in my notes was at 59 seconds when the Kraken is taking over the ship, destroying it, and there's a doorway where the tentacles pass by. And I'm like, oh my gosh, they didn't even animate that. They just moved
Dragged a
like a
PNG
PNG
tuber.
into
Yeah. Dragged a
yeah,
PNG of the tentacle.
yeah, definitely a shortcut. Which at that moment, because it wasn't even a minute into the movie yet, I was like, oh, that seems weird, because they actually animated the tentacles pretty decently when it's emerging from the water before that. So that was the first time, like, oh, this is actually going to be a lower budget thing. All right, and it definitely was.
Yep. With that, let's go to Crimson.
Okay. Um, so I'll talk about Audrey falling down the cliff. Well, I guess they all kind of fell down the cliff, but Audrey fell the furthest down. And they did a thing that bugged me in Sinbad, technically, and that's them cutting away from their return. They were all dangling off this cliff, and Mole grabs her. It's like, I got you. And then we cut to them to safety. I'm like,
Uh,
how did you guys get out of there?
I have a bigger question. How did they get back to Atlantis?
How did they get anywhere? It's just like cuts to locations.
Yeah,
The whole
exactly.
movie.
They That's one of my biggest pacing issues with this film. Is like when they just showed up to Atlantis, I'm like, okay, that's fine. And then when they have to leave to go on their adventure, they just appear on the surface. I'm like, and it just the entire adventure to find Atlantis in the first one went through my head, and I just went, how the fuck did they get there so fast?
Yeah. Also, upon arriving to Atlantis, they had 4 of those flying doohickers, whatever they came with, and each one had 2 seats, and they came as a crew of 8. So taking Milo and Kida, they would have to take some other form of transportation, probably Atlantean, to get topside. We don't know what that was.
Or sit on someone's lap.
Yeah. Well, I assume they had. I do assume that they had a large. They could have just taken an Atlantean device to the surface. I'm not. I don't have too many issues with that.
Writer, since you just saw the first one, I'm glad you did because there was a question I had that I didn't remember from the first one. Did the lava dome that covered Atlantis get broken, or did it end with the lava dome on them?
The
It broke.
dome. Yeah, it broke. The dome wasn't there permanently.
It got like the blue Atlantean language over the dome, and that cracked it or something.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Then that fixes that because I wasn't sure on my notes if there was supposed to be a lava dome or not over thermal vents. I don't know where that is on my notes, but
I
they did
don't.
give an explanation to how they arrived there without
Yeah, that doesn't explain anything because
going
I.
through
I
a
don't know
thing
I don't
again.
know the geology of location or anything like that. Though that I should theoretically because they know where it is. Atlantis is quote unquote on the map. There was a whole big thing of how they uh, at least in the first film, that they were gonna hide the fact that they discovered Atlantis and stuff like that. Um, so I don't mind
Yeah, we
that.
know it's underwater.
Yeah, I know. So I don't mind the fact that the world, mind you, hasn't discovered Atlantis. I thought that was the point of the first film still. But my biggest issue is just that just because they just say, oh, we came through the thermal vents. I'm like, okay. I feel like they need to just give me a little bit more than that to how they quickly they got here and theoretically how quickly they left as well.
Sorry,
It
Redder,
is
they didn't have the budget for it.
I know.
it is how they left in the first one, right? That's where the like hot air balloon was going. It was going through a
No,
thermal
that was
vent.
through a volcano. Well, yes,
Yeah,
it was
it's
through
going
the
from the
volcano
volcano.
was the original plan. Um, and then it exploded and became active. So I don't think they flew down that one.
Don't know. What I do know is the first movie ends with them on top of kind of like a big statue in the middle of Atlantis, and it pans out to show how huge Atlantis is. Atlantis is not that big in this movie.
No, it is not. It definitely shrunk in size.
It's way smaller.
Atlantis at the end of the film in the first one looked
Yeah.
like Coruscant with all the ships flying around.
Yeah, it's massive. Yeah. I guess another little animation thing I saw is when Kida goes up to the stones to see her father's stone, degraded. It's
uh,
very flat.
yeah, yeah. Again, I'm happy I saw the rewatch the first film. I did think the same thing. It looks a little bit degraded.
Well, writer, uh, did the first one hold up to you? It's been a whole
Actually,
year.
it improved. Yes, I actually am gonna bump up my objective score. Come the recap.
Ooh. Should I point out something big in this movie that's overarching?
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess a question being that Ryder rewatched the first one. When does this movie, Milo's Return, take place?
Good question. Next question. I have no idea.
Does it look like 1914 to you?
Not anymore.
Wild.
Nothing really stands out that it's not in that time frame though either.
The big thing that it's a big aesthetic change because we're stuck with the kind of World War I looking aesthetic from the first film. But the problem is nothing comes up in this film to kind of reinforce or double down on that. I think Kida dresses a little more modern um, than what might be expected. I think the hospital tech is probably a little bit too updated. Looks more 1950s than 1914 ish.
Yeah.
Um,
I think the uh, water vehicles or water ships are too advanced.
the cargo ships. Um,
Yeah.
I don't think so.
I think I'd have to rewatch. I'm not 100% sure on the cargo ships. I can see what you mean though. I have a very distinct image of what the World War One cargo ships looked like and what the World War II ones looked like. Because shock, shock, surprise, surprise. I studied the convoy escorts during the war. So Yeah, it doesn't feel right to me, but I'd want to double check because there's not as much updating as you'd might think between them, if that makes sense.
Okay.
There's just not much in this movie that grounds it in any time, really. I mean, you're at a village, a fishing village that doesn't have fish, and there's nothing that really screams out any time frame. You go
No,
to a Western setting, which doesn't really ground you in anything, and then you go to a snow place in the third
no,
one.
I think the Western place does ground because if it's in a
So
Southwest setting and that's how the town's looking, that is not early settlement to that point of time.
I just wanted
yeah,
to
but you
double
could
check
have that
something.
setting in like 1990, and
Yeah.
it's
I
not like
can't.
a solid timing in that
Well, what
area.
I can't recall is if in the location to like the hospital, Wayne in the town, if there was a gas station
I don't recall seeing a gas station.
or a gas pump.
Yeah, nor do
But
I. I was just the only other thing that I could think of is maybe the hand grenades were off, but I had looking them up, they would be accurate to 1914. There's multi because whenever I think World War One grenades, we all think of the stick grenades usually, because those are pretty infamous. But we had the more hand like
yeah,
ball grenades that Vinny uses that I think still fit accurately to the time. Um,
So I think it fits the timeline that we have. It's just I don't think they capitalized on it in this at all.
yeah, they don't.
okay.
Because the other one they
I
certainly capitalized on it.
I go with I don't think I think time has certainly passed, but the reason why the group doesn't look any older is because at the end of the first movie they were all gifted a crystal, and the crystal, from what Kida said, slows aging. So I think that's why they all look the same age.
That would be really cool. I wish we got more on that.
That's the best I'm going with.
That would be cool. I don't. That would be very cool if they played into the aesthetic of other things. Um, I don't think I've got enough to go on as far as everything else is concerned because
Well, no, Kida's the only person we see wearing a necklace with the crystal.
yeah. Uh, but I think otherwise I'm okay with it. There's not enough to for me to dissociate like oh the time is off the time frame is off because of it's just not playing into the aesthetic as much as the first one did. But there's not enough to disprove it either, which is kind of a shame. I really liked the aesthetic of the first one.
And I think if like a lot of time went by or something, I think Atlantis would be fixed by then. We still see them
Great.
repairing
Yeah.
the city.
I was going to
So
ask that. What are they repairing? Because Kita says it is repairs and
yeah,
not like redecoration.
At
But the
the
city was never really attacked in the first one.
well,
yeah, the
the
city was
city
run down to
the
start
city
with.
was mostly a ruin in the first one. They didn't know how the technology worked. They didn't know how anything worked. So when we pan out and all the at least they got all their technology working, we see all the broken aqueducts, the broken waterways, the broken bridges that kind of formed passageways. I assumed when they talk about repair work, they're just talking broadly general repair work outside of the city because the steps are cleaner. They used to be covered in moss and overgrown, cracked, and broken. So there is a lot of repair work that's been done, which I did appreciate as a continuity thing. Uh,
Yeah, 8,000 years of wear and tear, just
yeah,
cleaning it
and,
up.
and now they have the techno, or now they understand their tech better thanks to Milo, so they're able to fix everything up.
I'm glad they do
Yes.
because I don't understand it. It's just some magical mumbo jumbo that can do whatever you want it to do.
Pretty much, yeah.
Hocus pocus.
It's better that in this instance the world building has benefited for it being off screen because we can just understand they could because they demonstrated they had better tech in the first one, so we can buy that. Okay, yeah, it makes sense that they would be able to repair their stuff this quickly because now they know what they're doing. They have better knowledge of their history, how their tech works, and all that stuff. Milo staying is what helped give us this outcome for the city.
Okay. I'm no biologist, and unfortunately, we have a guest who is more so than I am. But
A guest? That's
the
what I've been reduced to? Has my reputation
not
slid so
not
precipitously?
you, writer. I was hinting at Biomon, but um, the orb in Atlantis that has the past leaders' faces around it is like their source of sun. down here to give like that blue sky look is my best guess. Like that's their source of light. I don't know if that's also a vitamin D source necessarily, because I can get how when they all explore in the first movie to come down to Atlantis, everyone's still breathing okay. It's not an atmosphere change really. They can go without sunlight for a bit. On the flip side, Kida going topside, I feel like actual sunlight would be a bit detrimental to her.
We're dealing with people that don't age. Um, I think applying stuff like that without any backing within the movie makes
Yeah.
sense. For
There's
all we
no
know, they retained however their body was the moment they put on the necklaces or whatever, the any vitamins in their system. It's just been in a perpetual cycle, keeping them the way they are. We have no idea on any of that, so I'm not gonna really attribute anything. We don't know how the magic works.
Okay, don't. And Ryder, your thoughts on it?
so visually speaking, uh the the light, the heart of Atlantis looks more like a blue star than it does a yellow star. I'm I think for me that's enough to accept that it gives off the vitamin D nutrients that one might need. I think ultimately if they were going to make a distinction between the two, I think they would have I think they would have had made more of an effort to like try and separate like the the surface elements from the Atlantean elements, because there, I think biologically speaking, there would be a, I guess depending on the power of the crystal and stuff like that, there could be like a level of exposure to diseases or a level of exposure to numerous other things that they wouldn't have gotten on the surface from the past 8,000 to 10,000 years or however long Milo suggested in the first film. I think it was actually closer to 30, but um there's a lot of leeway given both visually and like aesthetically with how they're telling the story that it doesn't easily cross the mind, I guess. If they were going to do a more realistic take on it, I would be interested to see if they did tackle a subject like that, because it's not an impossibility um that the sun might affect them different, like their heart of the Atlantis might affect them differently. The crystals might act as sort of bio shields for all I know, as it does stop them from aging, so there's theoretically a lot going on with it. Um, but I guess to answer your question is like, yeah, if they wanted to do that, I think there's avenue to do that. It wasn't something they decided to do with the film at all.
Okay. For me, I think it's one of those things that it's a want and not a need.
Yeah, it would be cool. I would love to see that help distinguish Atlanteans from humans, because they've been the only part of history that I can think about that would relate to something like this is when the two halves of the human species reconnected with the discovery of the new world. Because the at that point humanity had been separated into two parts for since basically the breaking of Pangea into like or the not Pangea but the theoretical ice bridges and stuff like that that allowed people to cross over into the Americas and stuff like that. Um,
Yeah.
that would be the only theoretical thing in history to compare it to, and I would view if they were doing a realistic take, it would probably draw a lot of influence from that, I think.
Okay. Neat. Um, that was my point. So let's go to writer.
All right. I will touch on uh I guess yeah, I'll do Milo and Kida's relationship. Um despite some of the issues that we might get with Milo later on, I actually quite like their on-screen chemistry and relationship. They kind of continue it from the first one. It's kind of implied, well, not really implied. They're together in this one, without necessarily needing to be overbose about it, which I guess I liked.
Um, I, I wasn't a big fan of the route they took with it because it's very subdued from kind of what you were saying there. There's not much interaction that's just those two. It's kind of they talk to each other when there's something relevant to the story. There's never a look at us now. Well, there's no one-on-one just them talks. It's something that's happening on screen that's forcing them to talk, which
Uh,
kind of just makes it feel like any other character interaction to me.
I would disagree with that. They have quite a few moments together by themselves where it's usually Milo calming her because she's the one that's feeling uncertain about the choice to kind of the rebirth of Atlantis' technology and stuff like that. She's starting to feel a little doubtful. And Milo is very supportive of that. So I would disagree. There's quite a few moments. There's the one where she's there after, like, middle of dinner, she disappears and goes to the room in Whitmore's mansion and he goes to talk to her. And it's not saying it's not plot relevant, but it's clearly what's bothering her. And for me, I guess what I a lot about relationships is just helping each other through what's bothering the other person. So I won't
Yeah,
say
I
it's
mean,
not like,
just a lot of
yeah, so like I won't say it's like not very plot related because it is very plot related. There's not very much like funny haha moments outside of their first meeting again when Abby pretty much tackles him and they have a moment together before quote unquote their people are invading and then they have to run out. But a lot of their actions are
like
plot.
the life preserver and the safety glass is pretty much their humor banter with each other, and that could have happened with numerous other characters. Wouldn't have to necessarily be a Milo Kida thing. I could see Vinny, maybe not Mole, but I just didn't get a lot of romantic relationship and more just people.
Yeah, I guess
Well,
that's
Strengths,
what.
what did you get out of it?
Yeah. I didn't see that much romance, but I saw a lot of care, and it kind of fell on to something I wasn't quite a big fan of, was that Milo and Kida felt kind of kind of separate from the group a bit. Like it was like the two of them caring about one another, but not really so much of the others in the group that were with them. Um, a big point of it, I think, is like when Carnaby in the second act puts TNT and like blocks the passageway. Milo only like screamed out for Kida and not anyone else in the cave or that he's friends with. And it just seems like if there's a situation with Kida, Milo's like really on it. If it's a situation with someone else, yes, he's worried for them, but it kind of feels like that responsibility gets put onto the other members of the group. That I had a little issue with.
Um, with that example, I don't have an issue with him calling out his love interest's name over the friends that realistically he only knew for a
A week.
few weeks, right? I'm
True,
trying to
and
remember
Axe
the
Dad.
first movie. Forgot the timeline in the first movie because there was a amount of time it took them to get to Atlantis once they entered the caves. I know
Yeah,
they said it. I don't remember what it was, but I think it was like a couple weeks
yeah.
of trekking through the caves. Uh, and then you got the events of the first movie. So, yeah, they probably only know each other for a couple weeks, realistically, even though they
Probably, and
do
only
have good
trust each
group
other
chemistry.
for like the last bit of the movie when they change sides from Works.
Yeah. So I could totally buy him. I mean, he's been living with her in Atlantis. He left his life behind to live down here with her and the Atlanteans. So I'm fine with him calling her out and not like, oh guys, just lumping her in with everybody else. I'm fine with that.
Okay. I don't know. It just felt a
With that example.
a little disjointed, and that could have just gone to the writing team of just getting the plot faster along and not make a lot of bonding moments. But
Yeah, yeah. I guess my point is to you back to Crimson is like I see where you're getting at. I don't really have an issue with it being subdued romance because it's not the focus of the film.
I think the
Though I
fact
would
that this is
obviously would like a little more. But
three, yeah, the fact that this is 3 episodes jammed together instead of one cohesive story definitely hinders character progression and stuff. Because from what I could tell, I think the only like padding they did, I forgot what Spink specifically said, but it's just connecting the episodes at the ends. Like Cookie as a thing going on in the Southwest or whatever it was. I'm sure that was probably the part they added just to connect the storylines.
Yeah.
I don't know if they really added much in the actual
Yeah.
stories,
The only
just to kind of
through
connect.
line, like as far as character progression is concerned, that I thought they were gonna do was Kida overcoming her doubts about Atlantean technology. Because
Yeah, yeah, taking
that's
down for
like
the whole
given at the
time.
narration, and they try to keep that as a continuous thing.
Yes, I think that's the strongest romantic scene between Milo and Kida is the off room, kind of at the end of this act.
Yeah, worried about the potential other Atlantean monsters out there.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I will state for the three stories, I do think that was a cool starting block. Is that the Leviathan isn't the only like Atlantean war machine out there.
Yes,
Yeah, I mean, I kind of like the idea of what this show could have been, and the idea of hunting
twisting.
down Atlantean stuff, but it does come at the sacrifice of not being at Atlantis.
Yeah,
So, kind of like Asgard, you know? It's the people, not the place.
Wow.
Tie that in.
Ragnarok reference. Yay.
I love Ragnarok. I'm just sad what it did to the rest of the Marvel franchise. um, I will jump to a small bit that was very plot armor-ish. Their ramp just collapsed, I think, when they're trying to launch the subs into the water, and they
Yeah.
just launch off into a wall. Bit
Yeah.
Yeah, I
of a
guess the
problem.
Kraken did some shaky damage or something, but
Yeah, it wasn't shown, which is why it's a bit of an issue for me. It adds to the tension of the scene that they can't fight; they're just sinking. But it's definitely plot armor that they survived the going full speed ahead with missiles dragging and sparks into a fucking truck.
yeah. I'll do another one there for plot armor of them is that they're because of that their little sub pod is damaged and broken and they're falling into the Kraken's mouth and torpedoes get sent out I think by Vinny and the rest and we see by the shock wave of the explosion upon impact from the torpedoes that it does rock Milo and Kita's sub pod but that does no additional damage or pressure to the already cracked glass on them.
I mean, it's submarine glass. I imagine it's a bit strong, so I'm fine with it not increasing in cracks because they weren't that close to the explosion. But what was bothering me was how calm Milo was because this is a you're gonna die situation. He's kind of like, "Hey guys, we're kind of leaking. Can you help?" You know, he's not like, "I'm gonna die here." Uh,
That's
so
not
hmm,
is that character damaging? Because in the first movie, like any back
He's
of
very skittish in the
damage,
first
he's
one.
worried.
I
But he
again,
gets confident towards the end. But I don't know if that changes
I mean, to
much.
be she was getting shot at in the first one, so he definitely got braver. I'm don't know if this is character like damaging. It's just it's a little bit incongruent is what I would say. Cuz I can see the progression of how the character got here, but it's more implied progression than it is on-screen progression cuz there's theoretically a period of time that he's been with Kida and might have just gone over it a little bit more. There might have been other near-death experiences they had off-screen trying to fix shit in Atlantis for all we know, but it's I
I
guess
just
it's
thought that
more
was a little off,
yeah, it's a little off,
and I
but sorry.
Uh, but I didn't really know how they fixed it in air quotes because it doesn't get fixed. But the other two like guide it to the surface somehow, and it's not filling up with water. We get a shot of them talking while in the sub, and there's no more water getting poured in. So I'm like, oh, okay, they somehow fixed it. Then they got to the surface, and then it sank. I'm like, oh, they didn't fix it. Why was it not filling up with water still?
I couldn't tell you.
Yeah.
It should have been continually filling with water.
I'm fine with the two subs getting underneath it and lifting it. I still think it should have been continuously filling with water.
Yeah.
So I guess
Also, when they
technically
do,
it comes nuclear.
I guess so. When they breach the surface at 1332 ish, Milo takes out a radio to like call for help. Terrible lip syncing.
Yeah, not amazing. That I think that just goes for the animation as a whole is not amazing.
No, but I did catch a little bit where like earlier on, I think I only found one, but like Kida stands up and her head goes off frame, but she's still talking, so they don't have to animate her voice or her mouth.
I don't really remember that, so I don't know if that's just a byproduct of what they did or if it was a shortcut.
Yeah,
So
it was
I
short, but it was at 840 for that one. The creepy sea village they get to. Oh, also, in case you didn't know, or stayed for the credits, what's his name? Edgar Volgod or Volgood.
Volgood.
That's Clancy Brown,
Yes, I could tell.
which
I
too
always
talented to be in this movie.
I always
But
recognize Clancy Brown's voice. It's good to hear you. Good to hear you. I'm just like I'm also in the same boat of like, man, can't you do better? I mean, I felt the same with Carrie
yeah,
Walgren and Velma. So
eh, this was back in 2003, so he still had Shawshank on his belt. So you know what I'm saying. But this city, from what
sorry.
I
You just
found, was very. Oh,
yeah, sorry. You
go
just
ahead.
put an image in my head of like Disney calling Clancy Brown while he's on the set of Shawshank, and
No, we really like your performance. Can you do this thing for?
yeah, it's just, can you just say something into your phone, or can you come down and do some recordings in the audio booth for us real quick? Then you can go back. Goes into the recording booth in his Shawshank costume. For some reason, that just popped into my
That'd
head.
be crazy. He's recording Lex Luthor lines in that. Yeah.
That would be pretty cool.
But this little sea village is kind of based around the story or tale of the Call of Cthulhu esque, from what I could find. But it also just reminded me of like more modern day kind of appeal to it, like the video game Dredge a bit, or the Christmas movie Claus.
One of the things that added to the creepy factor in the village is I don't think anybody blinked for the longest time. The innkeeper blinked like
No,
once, but it was definitely like the dead-eyed stare that no one blinked, and I think that was an intention on the animator's part to just make it feel more creepy.
yeah, and no one made eye contact. Like they're not looking at the people they're talking to. No. With that, we can go to Crimson.
So I guess they're confirming because there's some magical stuff in the first one, obviously, and the crystals and some higher power, I suppose. But in this, there is kind of like a god figure of sorts, because we're told that Edgar made a deal. Was it with the devil or something else? I don't remember what
Yeah,
the deal
it's
was.
They say it's with the devil, but then it plays off that it was just the Kräken the whole time.
But then he disintegrated when the Kräken did, so that means they are linked, which makes me believe their myth is what actually happened.
Oh, that just that made me think they were just the Kräken kept him alive. It's like a
Why?
festival
What? Why? What
because he
really
died
makes
when the
that do
Kräken
that?
died.
But why would the Kräken care about that old guy? It could control anybody in
To
the village.
I don't know. Maybe that was the first thing he controlled, the person in charge of the village.
Well, if he can control anybody, he could make anyone the leader. I don't think there's really much of a connection there. I'm gonna go with the legend because that's the only reason I can see them actually linked to each other, and that just adds an interesting level to it. Which also, why does the Kraken only control one member at a time instead of the collective? Because we see with the villagers, it can control more than one person at a time.
and what's that? And it's I guess in that sense
Uh,
it's convenient that it doesn't take over our entire gang.
that's tricky. I I think it can control more than one in a zombied state, but it can like bodily possess one. If that makes sense. Like the green eyes is the Kraken fully in control of the entity of what it's possessing.
And
But all the
everyone else
dead-eyed
is
zombie stare is kind of just like a
they're in
part of the
drone mode
fog.
kind of.
Yeah.
That I wish there was more because that's a cool
I think that's the state.
I think it's a cool
Because I feel like
patch,
why wouldn't they all have
but
green eyes then?
yeah, like I said, I think that's a cool patch. I just don't have anything to go off of. Um, Interesting thing is might be that like and the reason our gang might not be affected if they were had the continuity stuff is that all of them still had their crystals, like it protected them.
Yeah, that would have been something to show that everyone still has their crystals.
Yeah, to show that everyone still has it and
Oh,
they're
was
not
it?
affected.
Did Vinny turn his crystal into like an earring at the end of the first movie?
I don't remember.
I
All I remember is
I
Vinny's
don't.
speech about needing to open a flower shop and wanting to close it down for August.
Yeah. And hey, they referenced a flower shop in this one too. What a callback.
So what was Edgar doing in the fog? Was it literally him luring them out to fall to their deaths? Because he went back to the inn and was like, "All right, get rid of their stuff."
I don't
And then I was
fuck
like,
if I know.
"Surprised to see us?" I was like,
That was
"Surprised to
that
see
was
us?"
really
And I'm
dumb.
like, "Oh, so was he expecting them to die? Was that an actual plan?"
I think so. That's my best
That
guess, luring them by
that's
the
very
lights.
stupid. Yikes.
I yeah
It was just stupid of him to say that with them in the room.
Yeah, they made no appearance in the room beforehand. Also, that he just teleports to the door because he's in the center of the room, and you just immediately, as soon as he walks out of frame, you just hear the fucking click of the door closing.
Ryder, I was baffled as soon as that continuity broke of him leaving and everyone's shifted positions.
Yeah, there's a
Because you see
uh,
them at the bottom of the stairs and then they're like directly to the left facing a different direction. And then was it Ingla? Inga is now like behind them when she was actually
Ingrid.
in front of them. Everyone just shifted and I'm like, what the heck just happened?
yeah, there's a lot of that. I think they upped Mole Man's power a bit to fucking dig holes.
Oh, with his bare hands?
Yeah, because I remember in the first one, I mean, he just uses a giant drill. I'm like, all right, that's cool. He's fucking the Underminer. I'm cool with this. And then in this one, he's just a mole, like literally.
He's
Well,
raised
there's
by
a part
more.
in the what's the part in the first movie when they're around the Firefly like camp and Mole just kind of like shifts his way back and forth and makes a hole to sleep in?
Yeah, I think he's just
We can't
dig.
exactly see what he's digging with.
Yeah, I think,
I
but
think.
he's digging with a tool though, not his bare hands.
Yeah,
I don't remember.
and they give him tools in this. He has like two little pickaxes, but there
Yeah,
are shots we see where he's just using his gloved hands.
That's what happens when you're raised by moles. You become one.
I don't know about that.
yeah. I mean, you're raised by badger moles, you become an earthbender. So it checks out.
Yeah, yeah, you can totally as human eat rocks.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's I don't know. I was annoyed that Audrey got hypnotized, then was unhypnotized, and they let her pilot a sub on her own. Like she didn't have a co-pilot. Like of anyone that needed a co-pilot after that, it would have been her. And I was a little annoyed that she was driving her sub on her own.
Good
Yeah, I
point.
suppose so. Yeah.
Sorry, it was just
The
it was
crew
just
should have been. She, no, that's a really good point to make out. She should have been the first one that someone has to watch her.
yeah. I feel like that at that point, if they were gonna give our main character anything to do, Kida would have been the one to sit with her instead. Because Mole Man and Vinny always paired up in their sub, even in the
Oh,
first
Ryder,
one.
you can't break up Milo and Kida.
Oh, yeah, I could. They're main characters. I could definitely do that.
Oh, of
For the
course,
safety of
you
other
could. Anyone could,
for
but
the safety of the team here, seemed like an
The
easy thing
dog
to
watch
do.
over her.
the movie's got to keep them together.
Yeah,
So,
little nick for
what do
me
you
in
say right
that
there, Crimson?
yeah.
Have the dog watch over her.
Oh, Obi,
Oppie.
yeah, yeah. And then with what you were going to say, Ryder?
Oh no, it's just a little nick for me.
Oh,
Not
yeah, no, I agree. She should have been the most looked at one if that makes sense. Um, I was confused because I don't think it was said. There's a part where Milo calls the Kräken a devilfish, and I was curious where the heck he just pulled that title out of thin air.
His knowledge.
Oh, Atlantean knowledge from the Shepherd's Journal. Okay, sure, that explains it.
Yeah, I mean, it could be there. I mean, also, I think Milo's just an educated guy. I mean, he worked at, was it a museum? I forgot where he actually was working at.
he
Worked
worked
at
at a
the
museum.
uh,
Yeah, it
he
was a museum.
worked at a museum, but not for. Uh, he
He
worked
was
for
like
a museum, not at a museum.
the janitor or something.
It was a bit
Yeah,
of both.
Like,
He was
he
still a
maintained the
cartographer.
boiler.
He was still a cartographer, and he still did a bunch of stuff for the museum, presumably, because you can definitely do both when you work for a museum. But it's
Well, wasn't his whole thing trying to get a meeting to present? And they're
uh
just like, "Oh, he's such a quack that
no,
they're not
his whole thing was trying to get
pitching his schedule."
another meeting to present because he's had. There's a line where he says he's been on expeditions before. He's led expeditions, and he's like, I just want to. I'm right this time about where it is. Kind of implying that he's done work for the museum before. It's just
Oh, because of his big stake from what was it? Green it wasn't Greenland, but it was something to Iceland.
Yeah, it was Iceland to Ireland. Ireland to Iceland?
That was it.
That sounds right.
Ireland to Iceland.
Yeah. So
Because he
there
changed one letter. That was it.
yeah, when he's yelling at the guys like I'm right about it this time, I know for sure. So there he's been on expeditions before and he's just down
But
it
he's
comes
failed.
he's failed and is also a bit down on his luck a little bit. So he does work for the museum. He's just been reduced to a boiler because he's a kook, as they say, from the perspective of his bosses.
Gotcha. All right. With that, let's go to Crimson.
Eight. What more do I have? I guess the
Ooh, you
Kraken
running low?
technically, yeah. I guess the Kraken technically teleports, and the movie
A couple
acknowledges it.
times, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when Milo's like, it's the size of a mountain. We're gonna crash into it. It's like that's no mountain. And then a little bit of bubbles and like, where'd it go?
Well, they wanted to leave the place with the where the cargo was. Like we got to get ahead of it, and then it's just sitting in front of them when Mole shoots out the flares or whatever. They're like, oh, how to do that? That thing's enormous. It,
Yeah,
it's so big, currents would be formed underwater from its movement. It's
it changes
huge.
size.
It does do that,
I have a
but that's
bit
not
of
the
a
only thing that changes size
question.
in this movie.
I have a bit of a question. Is
I'd
there
have
any
a bit of an answer.
yeah, is there a reason Sweeney isn't here or Kindly or whatever the doctor's name is? Because he showed up at
Oh,
Atlantis
sweet.
with the group, and then he's just gone for this adventure for some reason.
Ryder,
He
I
was in the
couldn't tell
west.
you. Yeah, he's in the West. And why Vinny didn't go to the West? Couldn't tell you that either.
Okay. Yeah, because I just thought he just disappeared, and like that would have solved my issue with why Audrey. He could have been the one with Audrey, and it wouldn't have to split up the main characters.
No, he was not a part of this expedition.
That's. I mean, so I would be okay with this if this wasn't if this was a TV show and they were just closing down the cast a little bit so they can focus on like three at a time and save Sweeney later, and then maybe drop another person out as they do. It just doesn't happen, which is I don't know. It just comes across as very odd to me as a choice.
It is being what they had the padded continuity that they tried to do between these episodes for the movie, but they're not giving lines as to why the characters are or not in places.
Mm-hmm.
So I go with that.
Well, I'd also like to point out that they were hired individually as like mercenaries in the first
That
one.
is true. But it
They
did
aren't
feel
an
like,
actual team.
In the first
well,
one,
the end of the
yes.
first movie kind of turned him into a team.
Yeah, the end of the first movie, they were a team. So I'm fine with them
I don't know,
having been
though.
split
They
up
kind of
again, but I think
they
I
kind of split up and did their own things. Like Vinny did his flower shops. I'm sure they all didn't hang around him in his flower
no,
shop.
the my issue is that they just went. My issue is that the doctor was there with them at Atlantis to kind of get them on the adventure, but he didn't go on the adventure with them. So it's more of like, why was he there at all? Then, you know.
Great, great point. Why go talk about something going on in the North Atlantic Ocean if Sweets isn't going to then go to the North Atlantic Ocean with them?
Yeah, Whitmore specifies specifically. Oh yeah, I've gotten the whole gang back together for this adventure.
Yeah, just make it real simple. It's like Milo goes, "Where's Sweets?" and Whitmore just goes, "Oh, he's down in the south, dealing with cowboys or something." It's like, oh, and that's all that's the one line you need.
Well, yeah, that goes into it being episodic and not a movie.
Yeah.
That's true, but that could go into the little continuity thing. It does feel like the episodes were done, and they could only put stuff at the beginning or end of it, and not edit and put stuff in the middles of things.
That's what it felt like.
So I think it does detriment a bit from that choice, which unfortunately I think goes into my editing objective.
The Kraken just attacks them out of nowhere on the ship. They were just having a talk about, adjusting their missiles and how their torpedoes and how they work and stuff like that. And the Kraken just shows up. Oh my god, the plot kicks in. Okay. Just very
No, the ocean's
No, this
full.
happens.
yeah.
Just kick the plot in.
Yeah. It's a pacing issue. It's a pacing issue for me.
Um, how strong would the two of you say Milo is
Physically or
physically?
Weak to average.
Weak
Uh,
to average?
I would
Okay.
have said weak to average in the first film. I would probably continue that into this film. I'd probably say a more average in this film. I have I could believe that he buffed up a little bit while he was getting braver, and the constant swimming with
Okay,
Kida would have strengthened his muscles.
that's true. That's true.
So
That's a point.
I would say average at
Okay, I
least in
just
this one.
see. Okay, so then you might both be in agreement with me for a little nick to him of him headbutting Volgud is fine and get him out of the phase of the Kraken, but then a goon kind of grapples Milo to the ground and holds him down. But then Milo has the power to kick the goon airborne off of him.
This kind of does get into like the cartoon element. You have Mole like charge into a whole mob, and he knocks them all down
Knocks every single one out.
with
Yeah.
one charge. So
I
it does get into the cartoon logic that we've talked about several times in the podcast.
The problem that I take with
Is
that
it
is
just
it's
as brilliant?
inconsistent with the first film. Because the first film has a very grounded approach when it comes to the cartoonish stuff. Like there's no mole like cartoonishly knocking over five people. So I view that as an issue because it is inconsistent with the first film, unfortunately. Because
Yeah.
I would agree with
I said
you.
it's like if Milo's trapped, you can have Obi bite the goon, and then the goon is distracted by the bite, and then gets Milo out, or Vinny comes over and throws a bomb or something, blows up the goon, or something like that to help Milo if he's weak.
Yeah, I mean, like I wouldn't even send him flying. I would have just the kick could work. It would just knock him back. Like it wouldn't need to send him into the air or anything. It's just uh yeah, for me, the issue is that it's inconsistent with the first film. So I unfortunately take issues with a lot more of the cartoony esque elements in this one as far as the fighting is concerned, because the first film manages to make a lot of its action sequences, quote unquote, very grounded for what
Yeah,
we
I'll
understand it
Yes.
to
agree.
be.
So, I went with that one. So let's go to Crimson, unless you're getting to the bare minimum here for the act.
I'm getting pretty low, but I will talk about the Kraken's design. Other than the fact that it keeps changing sizes, as we've talked about, uh, it's not too bad. It is distinct. It's not just a giant octopus or squid. It's more of an octopus than this, but uh, it looks unique. The like green glows of whatever's on its head, which kind of implies the whole mind control aspect of it, is neat. Because you got like the Atlantean text all blue, and you got this Kraken with like a green light, so it is distinctly separate from any Atlantean connections,
Yeah.
visually speaking.
It also helps with the
Not that they
torpedoes
did all
being blue luminous lighting as well to kind of accentuate the more greenish sickly color.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Let's see. Audrey gets held up by the Kraken's tentacle when they're all fighting in that little cave area, and
Needed
Audrey
Boromir to
gets
run in and cut
dropped.
the tentacle off to catch her.
Wow. She falls into an inch of water and is fine. I can go with, I guess, cartoon logic for that too, but she would definitely be more injured.
How far did she fall?
What I recall, it wasn't like super high. Yeah, it wasn't that high.
Yeah. I mean, plus
Maybe
if it's
maybe
10
well,
7 feet.
actually, I was gonna never mind. My additional logic wouldn't have helped the scene. Uh, it's stone, so yes, I think she would be a little more injured. Because 1 inch of water over stone would be an issue. If it were sand, I would have less an issue because underwater sand is is much more malleable as far as impact. It would still hurt, but less damage. So yeah, I'll add a little bit of a plot armor issue there.
Yeah.
She would survive it. She would just be a little more hurt.
Yes.
Same with Vinny getting a
Even
fucking
more
wrench to
so
the
is why
face.
she shouldn't be manning a. Oh, yes. But just a little more so why Audrey should not be manning a sub pod by herself. Ryder, how's your notes looking for Act 1?
I could probably pull a couple more, but I'm down to move on if we need to.
Uh, how about you shoot out one left, Crimson, you shoot out one left, and I shoot one left.
All right.
Works for me. Uh, I am confused why they had a bunch of military hardware this time. Mostly because of the first film, where they obviously Rourke was leading a big military operation, which got shrunk down from 300 people to like 30 after they lost their big sub. So I'm confused as to why they even had military hardware when they were off searching for this one. There wasn't really a big explanation because they didn't really bring in a big military guy or something like that.
Well, the original was completely funded by Whitmore. He hired Rourke like everybody else. So that was Whitmore's equipment.
Okay.
So he's
Yes.
still here bankrolling this mission.
Okay, then I
This was
guess
all
that's
funded by Whitmore, and I guess Whitmore just thought they would need all this.
so. All right. Less of an issue then. Carry on.
Okie doke, Crimson for you.
Yeah. The one of the parts that annoyed me was them finding the secret entrance to the cave. I don't know why they thought there was a secret entrance because they were actually looking for it, unless I missed some sort of dialogue leading up to it.
The dialogue was
Did
mole
I miss
noticed because
anything?
it's mole superpower. It's just a very, very shitty like door.
No, I'm fine with him actually finding it the way he did. It's them actually looking for it that that was bugging me because they were talking about looking for an entrance, and I didn't know how they knew there was an entrance to look for in the first place.
Oh, I see what you mean. No, I don't remember anything being stated that there is something to go looking for.
Yeah, they're
Just
just
assumed.
looking. Yeah, and then I liked Mole finding it.
True, but especially since the last time they did it, they fell off a cliff.
So it's convenient they were in the spot to find it, and super convenient that they knew to look for it. 'Cause there was no reason for them to be searching for that in the first place.
Yeah. No, I agree with that too. Last point I'll go for Act 1 here is when they fire magnesium flares underwater because they can't see. Magnesium flares do not come to a dead stop underwater. They would slow down their uh, acceleration and then start to go to the ocean floor, but they would not stop right in front of the Kraken.
I agree. That's exactly how physics would work.
So, just to point that out. That was a very like aha movie moment, but
Yeah, I do like that it slows to a stop first, like but it wouldn't stay put. It would just slowly start sinking again.
yes, which I think they do with flares in the first movie,
They do.
if I remember correctly. But okie doke. With that, we conclude the Kräken episode. I don't know what these episodes are titled. I didn't look into that, but just like Act One here. We'll now go into Act Two, which pretty much goes from the Milo and Kida talk in the side room, all the way to the end when they leave the South. So, episode two, Dust Coyotes. And let us start with Crimson this time. Oh, an ah from Ryder. I don't know. I heard something out of you.
All right, I'll go, and I'll go with compliment. I like the look of these sand coyotes. They're a little dated visually with like the blur effects on them, but I think they looked pretty cool, and I think they did use some reused animation on the first two appearances of them jumping off the mountains, but they look pretty
Yes,
cool.
I go with you. I like that they have a texture to them of like a film grain, of this constant movement, fuzziness to them as a pack.
I would
Yeah,
agree with that.
yeah,
They
I
gives
agree.
them a more unique look.
Yeah, so they stand out, but it doesn't feel like Atlantis.
No, not Atlantis.
Additional compliment as well. They all still hate the meat slop that the chef that works for Whitmore makes.
Oh, cookie mix. Yeah.
Yeah, a little funny still. I appreciate the continuity though.
Yes, there was a bit at the table where Miss Packard's trying to get everyone's attention that she's getting a call from Sweets that they should go visit. And we see Mole isn't talking to anyone. Audrey and Vinny are talking, and then Whitmore's talking to Milo and Kida. There is this like dubbed over chatter of like a mess hall, like all these people are talking over one another. I don't know where this noise is coming from.
Oh, it's just to play up the
Um,
joke, but I agree. I can
Yeah, yeah. Like we see who's talking where, but they're not. It sounds like way more people than it is.
I suppose so.
So I guess let's go to writer.
All right. Uh, I think I liked the end of this arc the most. But by the way, the end of the arc, I mean just like
Episode
the
two.
Nishoni wind spirit that talks to Kida about like it's up to her if she wants to make the choice, and this is kind of where I felt the most like okay, we are feeding into an arc for Kida by the end that I think comparatively to the others. Um, it I do it's the Nashoni wind spirit is obviously very archetypal Native American. I don't think it goes far beyond that to make him like an actual character beyond the archetype. Um, that being said, I do think they serve their purpose very well and to what is supposed to be Kita's arc, uh, on in this film.
Yeah, I'd
Okay.
agree with that, and I like the whole like trick question, as Audrey pointed out, with revealing secret.
Yeah.
I have no idea how it got done the cliff either, but I'm happy they did. Well, I guess Mole could just now that Mole could just dig with his bare hands. He just dug through the night, and just dug a hole in the mountain.
Yeah. You can just do a cut to white and everything's fine. So okay. Crimson, you brought it up earlier. I think the glass conversation, the glass case, is probably the funniest thing in this movie. And it's kind of a callback to the name confusion in the first one of like Cookie is sweet, but he's not sweets, and Cookie's the chef, and that like kind of name thing. Um, and then they kind of bring it back in the third act with putting the spear in a glass case.
Yeah, that was the funny part for me. I wasn't expecting them to bring that back.
I agree. I did enjoy I actually do think the exchange was probably also my pick for funniest moment in the film. I didn't expect it to get to me, but just I guess it works because it kept getting more absurd. I think would be the way I would phrase it. But in its absurdity, it still made sense with their conversation exchange. But I did like that it wasn't a one off. I did
It
like that it came
did. I
back.
do feel yes. My one little nick to it though is that for how long Milo's been around Kida, he should know how precise he needs to be when talking to her about things that aren't Atlantean.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think the only counter argument I could make into that front is that he just hasn't been around his own stuff to describe to her.
That's what I was gonna say.
Yeah,
He's kind of limited.
but it is a continuation
But,
from where they left off in the first film. Like they have a similar exchange in the first film.
yeah, I like that they did like a fish out of water thing with her. I kind of would have liked if they did more of it, but I'm sure they would have throughout the show if the show existed. But I do like that they went that approach with her because it would have been kind of glaring that. I mean, it kind of with like the submarine when it was sinking in the first episode. I was like, she knows how to work that. It's like she tries to twist the
She's
wheel
flipping
and
switches,
do other
turning
stuff in there.
knobs, yeah, demonstrating her competence even if we don't understand how the sub works.
So I do
Yes,
find that a little peculiar that she knows how to operate that, but she doesn't know the concept of glass protecting something.
I guess so. Yeah, it's a little off. Um, I can see the reason why in a situation someone would do this. However, I still found it very dumb when they're in the van and the sand coyotes are getting into the van. The funny bit of Mole trying to blow on them to make them go away is funny, but Sweet's just full on punching one
This one,
doesn't work. And
I
I think for me it crossed a line.
not to defend Spider-Man 3, but um I don't know. I'm okay with people punching at sand in general. It's just it's instinct to do that. Once it doesn't work, I think I would prefer him to try something else, but I think I'm fine with that being his first instinct.
I would like to point out he did punch it in the head where the glowing eyes are. So that there is kind of this wiggle room where he did hit its weak spot. It wasn't just punching sand. Um, so I could buy it. We are dealing with magic already. But him hitting the glowing eyes, I could see being a reason for it actually doing something to it.
Okay.
Sounds like you disagree.
Well, I guess I can see that as a first instinct. I just thought with the situation of maybe it's just the buildup or pacing of all of it, just like how they were being attacked and then the guy in their car disappeared and vanished and they don't know how. And when he was given the thing, everything turned red. I don't know if that was just a depiction on the audience or everyone, or he actually turned the whole world red when he was explaining or something. But then they're being attacked by the wolves on the side. Then the wolves get inside. I just think it was building up to something a bit too much. So it did seem in a tense moment something too silly. That's why I hold it as kind of more stupid. But
Right.
I think it's just the way it was built up then. All right, with that, let's go to writer.
What do we think of the villain for this arc?
Just a
It's
sleazy
cookie cutter.
salesman.
Yeah. He's pretty bland. He's willing to kill people for money,
He's voiced
which
by Tom Wilson. That's something.
I don't know who that is.
He's the guy who played Biff in Back to the Future.
Ah.
Yeah.
So uh, him jumping to the point of killing people does seem like kind of a jump of just like sleazy salesman merchant man, but it's not outside the realms of possibility, I guess.
Yeah, I don't view it as out of character. I just thought it was a bit of it's just a it was just an extra jump into cliche territory, I guess.
Oh yeah, he's cliche. And
Yeah, that's a
spoilers for Pirates of the Caribbean 4, uh, Blackbeard death. My gosh, I think that's what happened to him here, where he just got sandblasted into oblivion. So
Yeah.
no. He
brutal.
turned
No,
into
he
one
he
of the
got
coyotes.
absorbed is what happened.
Eh, yeah, but we see that the sand blasts, which is why everything in the shed is smooth. So I'm just picturing him getting sandblasted.
Yeah.
I would agree with that
Yeah.
if
Okay.
it didn't have the dialogue to contradict it, I guess. But it would be a
And
brutal
even with
death.
that, this is still rated G.
Well, it just says he's with us now. That could be spiritually with him. So he
I
still could
suppose
be
so.
viciously murdered.
I mean, I don't think they're above
Man,
murder.
can you murder people in a G movie? Allowed?
I think people are allowed to disappear off screen.
Kida's dad got killed.
Well,
Well, the
that's in the
first one was
first
PG,
film.
I think.
He dies of old age, though. He doesn't get killed,
Yeah.
though it's obviously implied that the lack of the crystals and the power
Well,
killed
Rourke
him.
dies, and uh, Helga dies.
Oh yeah, people die on in that film. They're just very good at like not being making it graphic.
Kind of cover up
Yeah.
people in their pods screaming, and then explosion.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but this is a G-rated movie, so I just didn't know if that was allowed. I guess it is.
Uh, Pretty dumb of our group to be teleported via sand spirit to the front of the shop without them noticing the shop.
Yeah, until it's needed.
Yeah, but it's one of those things where it's like just because it's out of frame doesn't mean it doesn't exist.
Yeah,
Because they're
as I wrote down,
crashed like
because this episode to me had a bit of the same pattern in conversational structure between scenes of introduction, small banter, MacGuffin plot. It
yeah,
just felt like that same pattern throughout this second bit.
I can agree with that.
Also, I think ancient forces at work is a lame excuse. I'm sorry I'm bashing on this a lot, but
I mean, it's not an impressive film, so bash away. Honestly, yeah, I mean the world building is for this one is just the cool aspect of it, I guess, for me is that the connection between the Nishoni tribes and the Atlanteans and how they were taught medicine by an ancestor to the Atlanteans, which is
yeah, the
cool.
Nishoni and Aztec and Mayan and Olmec,
Yeah,
Atlantean all
that's
together.
very cool. I wish they played with that as a concept a little bit more. I'm fine with buying that into this world. That could just be how this world is, and that's the origin of where all that comes from. But yeah, just needed to play with it a little bit more, I think, to capitalize on it.
Yeah. Um, Another thing we said about Milo or whatever, he studies Atlantean and is the linguist for that, and that's what he would focus on. I don't really know why he would know Nishani stuff, because he just brings up by himself remembering a wind spirit that he necessarily didn't ever study that's relevant to the conversation at hand.
The only the I agree. I think the only counter argument I can make for that is that because there's some Atlantean dialect in that language, he ended up coming across something related to the wind spirit.
Could be. Crimson, you've been a little quiet. Anything you want to add on any of these points or one of your own?
Not necessarily to the points made. Just I'm not as hard on Milo's knowledge as you are. I kind of see him as like he did world history research when looking for Atlantis. So I do find this one pretty specific of a history to know, but there is an Atlantis connection with it. So if he found something during his research, I can believe it. Um, in terms of me jumping somewhere, Mole. I like how he investigated the sand. I mean, he's like, there's nothing weird with the sand. So I'm like, okay, nothing
Geolocated the
weird about the
pot
sand. No magic.
location.
That is
Yeah,
the problem. That is my problem. Like, why does Mole know this place?
he
It's
doesn't.
15 miles up here in that mountain. I'm like, you don't know that mountain. You don't know any of this. You've never been here before. Give me a break.
Yeah, he's a
Uh,
Frenchman.
Yeah,
No, he's not been here.
so
yeah.
that was too much.
In defense of
I
Mole,
can get him.
I
Okay, go
yeah.
ahead.
In defense of this, it's not inconsistent with his portrayal in the first film. I obviously find this power scaling absurd, but it's not an inconsistent with his character traits as established.
No, but
I
I feel
understand
like
him.
for this team, they should have had Cookie join them, of like the southern guy,
Yeah,
and him and Mole having banter back and forth to figure things out.
yeah, because I would still like him to be able to use his quote unquote mole powers, but he would still need help navigating to the exact spot because he's not from around here. So like he's like, oh, this rock looks like this typically on the surface, and then they can turn it over to Cookie, and Cookie be like, all right, well here are these mountains and these mountains, that sort of thing. But
Yeah, that's my main thing is that he was able to be specific. Like it's 15 miles to that mountain. Like you wouldn't know that. I'm fine with him figuring out the type of rocks and where it would potentially be. And yeah, we could go to Cookie or Sweets, sorry, or we could go to Sam in the hospital because he knows the area. There's avenues to where Mole could provide information for someone else to deduce the location. But him just going, it's 15 miles over there on a mountain. I'm like, you don't know
yeah, it's not an
too
inconsistency, it's
much.
just a power scaling issue. So it's still a character problem, but not like I don't view it as necessarily damaging to the character, I guess would be my take on it.
Gotcha.
Yeah, power scale.
Is it a problem that no one notices Carnaby making sleeping gas or having sleeping gas on him?
I
I'm
have a
sure he
question
has.
as to why he's there at all.
I guess good point. I mean, so he can return the pot
Is
that he
that
stole,
is
if
that
that's
the excuse
an
that he was
element.
giving?
I don't know if he gave a reason.
I don't know if that's the excuse he gave. I think that's the reason they have him coming along with them because he stole it from Sam, so he needs to return it. But then again, if Sam has it, then Sam stole it, which I guess is why Sam got attacked in his shed. But if Sam's the one not needed to return it since he took it, it does kind of play off then, I guess, the question of why Carnaby has to be the one to come and return it.
Yeah, especially since he says he doesn't believe in all the mumbo jumbo.
Yeah.
The plot needed things to happen, right? He needed to be there.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Again, another sweet Kida and Milo moment. They're small, but I appreciate them. Is when they're standing out and looking over the statue before they get sleep gassed, and they kind of share a moment about just being amazed at how far like Atlanteans' influence has reached. Nice little bit.
Sure.
So, something that got to me a little bit was like Atlantis. We're only 3 episodes into like a whole season of a show, and we already have artifacts that are directly linked to Atlantis being found everywhere. And it was kind of built in the first one, from what I call, that there's not really any evidence of it truly existing except in the Shepherd's Journal, right? It's
Yeah,
in that
Good
old
point.
pile.
yeah.
So
That's
it
Excellent point.
just seems like Atlantis is everywhere.
yeah.
Which makes me feel like Milo shouldn't know about any of this other stuff.
Yeah, it's an inconsistent world building problem that carries over from the first film. I gotta tell you, plot and world building don't
I'm
score all
fine
that
with
high.
Milo. I'm fine with Milo knowing it now because he's lived in Atlantis and he would want to know everything about it. So I'm fine with him knowing that stuff now. But the fact that it's out in the world and it was discoverable before is
prior,
just
Yeah.
and it seems
doesn't make any sense.
Well,
easier to be accessible than the whole first movie Discovery of Atlantis. Like there's just an open cave wall they walk into and find all this stuff.
oh, it's even worse than that. Someone came in here, grabbed a pot, and left, and didn't see anything else. Apparently, the
I mean,
stolen
there's
pot or
also
whatever.
the Atlantean statue of the Crystal Guardian or whatever that had like Atlantean writing on it. It's just I think they damaged their world building with this concept of the
They
show.
really did. I understand I understand the need
And
to
if the
kind
show
of,
continued, Atlantis stuff would be everywhere.
yeah.
If they
There's
continued with everything is connected to Atlantis, then yeah, it would be.
It would have been interesting if someone had stolen something from Atlantis and that's what kicked off this journey. They're trying to, let's say the spear was the MacGuffin of the original movie, or of what kicked off the original like 12 episode, 24 episode TV show season, right? And so they kept what I thought it was going to be is going to be a bunch of things that weren't related to Atlantis that could have been Atlantean. They're just going around to make sure like Atlantis stuff isn't all that dangerous. But the spear that's in Whitmore's house is obviously supposed to be very Atlantean. And that would be the one thing that did get out somehow, you know. So there the idea that
Yeah, like
they
a Ulysses Claw with you Wakanda type thing.
kind of, yeah, like there just happened to be some vibranium that the US collected into a shield that got out of Wakanda over the 1,000 years that it was running and being somehow a very peaceful society. Um, I would have bought into it a little bit more if that were the case, but seeing it everywhere like this comparatively, I think is very, very damaging to the world building we had in the first film, which is unfortunate.
Yeah, because it's not like if they had something like the jewel and the necklaces glow in the direction of an artifact, it'd be kind of like cheap, but at least that would explain why they're so easy to find. But that's not something that's happening. They're just stumbling across Atlantean stuff.
And it also would have been a way to explain away like that's why nobody knows they're connected to Atlantis is because they lack the crystals to find them.
Yeah, but no, it's got Atlantean writing on it. So.
Yeah.
Hear those gears
Yuck.
turn and springs, yeah.
Big, big yuck. It's messy.
Yeah.
Big hit.
Well, yeah. How's everyone's notes looking for the rest of this act?
I think I still got a couple things left.
I will skim.
All right, Crimson, to you.
All right. So Takashi was, I guess, toying with them on the road because he pops up 3 times instead of just in front of them or just sitting in their cars, just appearing out of nowhere. I don't really get the point of doing that. But I
You
guess
really
he
had
was
a
like going around.
message to tell him.
Yeah.
I honestly think he was just
You
vibe
happen to
checking
have
them.
I mean, he's the wind. He's like nature. I don't think he's more than just this depiction of
Yeah.
a person.
Yeah. I
So I
think
don't
he
even know if
wanted to
that's
have a
necessary.
actual conversation with them to get to know them and vibe check them. Because I think as he says, they're there to protect their artifacts and stuff like that and what their culture was. So I think he's making sure that they're not like grave robbers or people like Rourke.
Yeah, I could function.
Yeah, I'm fine with him going to talk with him. I'm just talking about like the 2 times on the road that they pass him.
Oh yeah, and then he's just they're new in town, so I think he's just he's spying on them, and then obviously when he gets into the car, he's just vibe checking him.
Maybe it's like giving them the option to invite him in.
Maybe.
And upon the third doing, they're like, all right, well, the third one, he is more so in the middle of the road than on the side, but so
Is it an issue?
writer to you.
Yeah, is it an issue that Kida just has a bunch of American money?
I
Um,
assume Milo gave it to her.
uh,
Whitmore gave them all money or something.
yes, that's where I'm going on it,
Okay.
because Milo's like, Kida, you shouldn't, and I don't think that was necessarily Kida's to start with. Like, she was given it by someone else.
I could believe Whitmore gave each of them like fun money or something.
It does seem like a big wad of bills, though.
It does, and she clearly doesn't understand.
Yeah, she clearly doesn't understand negotiating stuff.
Yeah, I think the money is like an emergent thing. It's like, hey, if you get in a situation where you need to buy your way out, here's this.
I could see them all having money for whatever purposes for the journeys.
All right. I just wanted to. I don't know. I'm kind of in agreement with you guys. I just want to, I guess, vibe check to make sure I didn't
Yeah,
over. I just want to make sure I didn't over. What is it called? I always say this. It was. It's not imply. It's infer. I didn't want to over infer. What's going on in the story?
yeah.
Yeah,
My first take on it was I thought it was Milo's money that she like stole from him, that she just has possession of and is just giving it all away. But the way Milo kind of reacts to it doesn't seem that way. But it is a little weird that Kida's the only one who shows she has money. So it stands out more because it would feel like in that group she's the one who shouldn't have American money.
I think my issue with it was they gave her money without educating her on money. She doesn't know the value of it.
I guess so. Was there money in the first Atlantis? Like, does she do anything when they toss her the like lobster that she knocks unconscious? Is there like a trade in that scene?
I don't know.
Can't
I
remember
think
if there
they're
was
more like
currency in the first movie.
I think they're just like a barter society. 'Cause there's no like outside trading because they live by themselves.
Yeah.
So it's probably just a barter system they have.
Yeah. Okay. Sure. I guess that's the same way she took this. There's like a wad of this is a trade of that kind of thing.
Yeah, that would make sense.
So, I'm actually out because we've touched on everything I have. So, go to you, Crimson.
All right, kind of 2 points back to back on itself. So we have Ashton. We put them to sleep and tied them up and planned to blow them up by a cave-in, or was it the explosion he intended to kill them with?
I
'Cause
don't
he
think the
hid it somewhere.
explosion
He
was
intended
intended to kill
to.
him. I think the explosion was to trap them and then they'll like starve.
He
Yeah,
said he actually expects them to suffocate to death. He's like, you need to save your breath, boy, or something to that effect. So that to me implied that he expects
Oh,
them to suffocate to death after they're caved in.
which is just so elaborate and vicious. I
And
don't
so
understand.
unnecessary. Why didn't he just kill them all when they were knocked out?
That's the point I was leading to. Is like, if his intention was to kill them, why not just kill them? Why do this elaborate thing? He could slit their throats. He could even just put the dynamite in the room with them
This is
if
just
he.
extreme
It's
plot
so
armor. That's
efficient.
that's what this is.
because he's an old timey Western bad guy. Yeehaw!
And he had the longest fuse in the world to for what he was trying to do with them. So there was
Vinny
just
through his
a
natural superpower of explosions.
Oh, yeah, that's the other thing. Having a bad guy use a bomb and Vinny's not a part of the group. That's
yeah.
ugh.
unlucky on their part.
I feel like I touched on it on our first coverage, or something I brought up about
Yeah.
the second movie.
There's a
I don't know.
few
That just like tickled something.
Yeah, there's a few things I'm like, Audrey's the mechanic. Like they play into their specialties a little bit. They play into moles a lot. That's kind of why I wish Vinny was here for something like that, because Vinny would have been nice to have around. Like he could have just been like,
Have Cookie here.
yeah, Or have Cookie here,
This is
yeah.
his element, the South. He's not here.
Yeah.
Wait, yeah, you touched on Audrey with the car. I think that was a good way to to add her specialties into it.
Yeah.
Because I brought it up in the beginning of the coverage here that I do think all the characters, when they're around, are getting used correctly.
Uh, yeah.
All
Um,
right. Writer.
Guess no.
yeah, I think one of my last points is I guess how quickly they manage to free themselves and they all have to fucking hero pose. As much as I am supposed to enjoy this, I'm a little annoyed with the fact that they are all hero posing considering that they just barely escaped with their lives. I had an issue with them surviving them being caved in, and I realized if they were caved in, Oppie could have eaten their way out, or he could have just freed Mole and Mole dug their way out.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
suppose. Mole's a quick digger.
As
especially
demonstrated.
since kind of how the cliff face with saving Audrey and Mole comes out of the wall. It kind of explains that he then dug his way upward.
Yes. I do like that.
If that's how it's to be portrayed, but
Yeah. I do. I guess my last point is that I do like Milo tried to say that they can keep a secret, but they couldn't give up the fact that they knew where Atlantis was and stuff like that. And I appreciate the trick question, as it were. Good bit of dialogue
Yeah.
and exchange.
I got one more thing that came to mind. So, Chikashi, I don't. So he's like a wind spirit, some sort of like spiritual being, and we see he absorbs um, Ashton's spirit, soul, whatever have you. He's a part of it now, and I don't know why he didn't do that with Sam, the original guy, the one in the hospital. Why didn't that happen to him? And if he's got these powers to control wind, sand, what have you, why not block the entrance to this place? Why is there a tunnel?
I
huh?
I see what you mean. I don't know. I have no idea why that they would close it off. I just thought of another point as well, but I'll wait till this one's over.
Seemed intrigued with that.
Well, I don't think I've pieced it together that way, but
There's no
yeah,
purpose of
no,
like
I don't know.
protecting this place, so
Yeah,
Yeah,
he
that's
could do both of those things.
I don't know why.
is it
It
a
doesn't feel very protected.
yeah. It's not really been presented. Is it a problem that Kida doesn't heal the fucking guy in the hospital?
Oh,
Ooh,
never crossed my mind, but ooh,
yeah,
yes.
I'm starting to because I don't know, just crossed my mind because again I remember her healing Milo in the first one because again saw it this morning, but I'm like, oh yeah, why didn't
Well,
she help? I mean, okay, so there's two things about this, right? If she's still trying to figure out that Atlantean technology needs to be hidden, I would still want that conversation between her and Milo. Like maybe she feels bad and wants to do it, and then Milo suggests that she needs to keep that a secret. Like that would be. I feel like that's a conversation that needs to be had. And the fact that that's not here, I view as a problem because I feel like Kida would want to help.
I
yes, but
do
we
feel like
also
that was
don't know
it.
fully the healing elements of the crystals. We know they can heal wounds, like open bleeding wounds. Don't know if they can heal broken bones.
And they seem to do whatever you want them to do in the.
They seem to be
Yes.
the greatest MacGuffin ever invented. And so
I'm just going off of what was shown previous to now. We don't know if
yeah,
they can or can't.
yeah, that they
I
don't
don't see why it wouldn't be tried.
yeah, it's not specific. I still because of the power of the crystals being largely undefined but yet so expansive, I think that's a conversation that needed to happen. Even if they agree not to do
Yeah,
it just for the sake of keeping the secret, the fact that Keto would want to try it, I think would be enough for it to be quote unquote in character for her. Because she healed Milo on a whim, but also recognized
Well,
that he was the journal holder. So there's a couple things that lead
yeah,
into that.
something they might do with writers. Like if they continue with the show, she could heal later on, which then damages this that she didn't heal. But
Yeah. So I don't know if it's character damaging. It just feels incongruent. It would be a conversation that would help expand the world building just a tiny bit and keep a through line for Kida that we've already seen for her. Because my best inference is that the reason that she doesn't try it at all or do it is just because they're trying to keep the secret of Atlantis up still.
is Milo and Kida the only two who know crystals heal?
We could
Um,
say definitively.
Definitively yes, because
Yeah.
there's some wiggle room there. But the fact that the others were given crystals, they probably would have learned a few things. Like obviously, they're keys to
Okay, that's what I was
the
getting at.
trucks and
Why couldn't Sweets just heal him with his own crystal?
I don't know where their crystals are.
Well,
And the man's a doctor,
It bugs the shit
so
out of me.
well, I get if I'm going with it, they don't have their crystals, then that kind of debunks my thing that they don't age.
yeah, we don't see him with him.
Another world building problem.
Yeah, well, animation detail they didn't want to add, or a line to write in to explain, or what have you.
Well, that's a plot line for the later end of the season.
I know, man. Darn. Why couldn't they make a whole show? Probably would have been less bumpy. I don't know. All right, one last point from each of you.
I'm actually out,
Huh?
so
I'm out.
Oh, unless Crimson's got one more, then.
Nope.
All right, easy as that. That was episode 2. Sand, dust, coyotes.
dust to dust.
Now into from dust to dust. Ooh, I like that. Into the last one, which I just titled Odin Wannabe. From here to the end of the movie. And let us start with Crimson last time, right? Let's start with writer.
Sure, I'm happy to start. I think I was annoyed with the way they presented it. It's like, oh yeah, he tried to buy it from me a week ago. So I suspect it's this person because he just couldn't stand the thought of me keeping it. I don't know why it happened only a week ago. So like if he wouldn't he have known that he had the spear this entire time? So why would it be a week from now to where it was stolen? Does that make did that
I guess gave him the last chance to change his mind.
maybe? But if he's insane and viewed himself as Odin, I don't understand why he didn't come to collect his spear before then.
Maybe the rejection
Oh,
is what
so
made him lose his mind.
The rejection
could be.
specifically?
Maybe he was like in a two-phase situation where it was Eric by day, Odin by night. This phone call has broken him. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know if I have enough to infer. I think it's a plot problem that this happened so perfectly, I
What we
guess
do
would be the
know
way.
is Bean Whitmore said that Eric called him, and not someone going by the name of Odin claiming to have the ownership of the spear. We do have that.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember where they mentioned that they know he goes by Odin. 'Cause they do say it at some point. I just don't remember.
Well, it was like when he bought his castle and called it Asgard, and he liked the feeling of being a god in the slideshow.
A modern Odin since he made his castle Asgard or whatever. Yeah, I guess the timing is just really plot convenient. Ultimately, I guess I'm okay with how it plays out. It's just very
It's a
convenient that
week
I'm
is
not.
a lot.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
I hated the way they pronounced.
I'll go with what I. Oh,
Yeah. Sorry, I want to jump in one more. I
no,
hated
Ryder,
the.
you're getting postcarded. Go.
Okay, yeah. So I hated the fact that they again in the vein of Kräken, they mispronounced Gungnir, the spear. Annoyed the shit out of me.
Yeah, knock near.
Yeah,
whatever.
it's been pronounced Gungnir or Gungnir. So I was annoyed with that mispronunciation. I'm thankful it didn't happen as repeatedly as Kräken, but still annoying.
Yeah. What I found annoying that I wish was not prevalent in this movie was Milo pulling out the Shepherd's Journal at a table.
Okay.
It
Well,
annoyed me that the past two stories with the Kraken and the that's like he doesn't have the Shepherd's Journal.
Oh yeah, well they went back to Atlantis off screen to have a week break, and then they had to come back to Wimmer's house. I have no clue.
yeah, yeah.
For me, the sake they show it for Milo to pull up information that he's like, oh, I think I read about this, and like going through it. Why is that not previously coming across things earlier of like going like, oh, let me see if there's anything on that, and using the Shepherd Journal as a tool for Milo, which he did in the first film, and
Well,
rather than just being like, oh yeah, this, and we don't see how he knows this information, he just pulls out of thin air.
it's one of those things where I think if it was in a TV show, it would be kind of annoying to have that happen every single time. So it's weird that the first instance is in episode 3, I suppose. But I'm not opposed to it not showing up in every episode.
I see. So it would be in your mind, it would
I don't
become
know.
almost too tropey and episodic. Like, here's I guess an example. I don't know how much of Arrow you've seen, but the fact that the list is very, very integral to every episode of season one.
Potentially.
Of Arrow, you say?
Yeah. Remember how Oliver Queen has that book that he refers to in every
Yeah,
episode of season one? That's kind of how I can see the Shepherd's Journal being implemented. Is it's needed as a quick base of reference in each episode. It'd be very episodic. It's not necessarily, I don't know. I wouldn't necessarily view it as a bad thing. I would just view it as necessarily as a tool to expedite something.
I
But
just
I could see how it would get on
being that
people's
it's
skin.
shown, I wish it was. I'm not saying every episode he needs to open it up like a Doric episode, and we have to see the map of what's going on, kind of thing. I just wish it was more prominent that we know he has it on him in need situation versus then just pulling up in situations where he doesn't know or would know or it could answer things.
It just comes down to I don't know if he even had it in the first 2 episodes.
Yeah,
Yeah,
which
I
just
would
gives
agree with
me
that.
into the realm that it's like magic plot choice by the writers where when he has it,
Uh, again,
that kind of thing.
yeah, I agree. Yeah, I guess I don't really have any more to add to that. It's just I would if it were going to be a regular implementation, they should establish that he has it. But it just kind of comes out of nowhere, which I view as a bit of another plot problem.
Um, no, let's go with Crimson because I brought that up.
Okay, so we see them all fall on a cliff again, and I think this one's worse than the first one, which is they're
Them,
all going at like incline or like incline, going inwards instead of falling straight down, which
yeah,
doesn't
that
make any sense.
yeah. The
Well,
geography of this
Crimson,
place
if
fucking
you
bends.
if you jumped out of a plane and started running down the side of a mountain, you'd be fine.
Well, he would be fine
Yeah,
if he has the Mission
you're
Impossible music playing, but
Well,
got the reference.
Ryder, those are real
Um,
stunts.
exactly. Like I said, he would be fine if the Mission Impossible
let's
music was
keep it.
playing. That's what I said.
Let's keep it. Yeah. So yeah, that was a lot, and then obviously we talked about character strength, and there's a lot of character strength going on in this moment too.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
I was a little
Someone is holding like 3 people. I don't remember who the top person was. Was it Milo?
hope it's not Milo.
Because
Milo
you got Audrey holding Mole, and then there's
Milo's holding on
Milo,
to Vinny.
Vinny, and the dog. So Vinny's holding them up then.
Yeah.
Pretty
odd.
strong.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, the incline jumps. His geography just straight up changes. They also I don't. One of the things I didn't understand is why Odin unfroze them to only deem that he's going to kill them. I guess that
Because he
bothered
wants
me.
to tell him the plan.
Yeah. Yeah, I wanted to take this time to explain
Also,
my evil
bothered
plan.
me that they survived.
Oh yeah, and I like that
And
this.
he wanted to save his daughter.
Yeah,
Yeah, I found it very funny
he
that
was a nut job.
the spear did absolutely nothing to Milo.
Yeah, you got the purple blast, and he's like, "Ow!"
Yeah, I would have been
Yeah.
fine with it if he was wearing the crystal. Just saying.
And there's like a blue shield that popped up or something.
Yeah, exactly. I would have been fine with it if he'd been
Maybe.
wearing the crystal.
I don't know why Vinny was set as co-pilot if he's going to just have the plane go dead stick.
Yeah, that bugged the shit out of me. I have no idea why he's just stopped flying. That made no sense. It's again too cartoony. I didn't appreciate that.
Yeah, that was really just for a joke or a tension build. That was really beyond silly to the point of dumb.
The stakes
know
in
why they're
this the
flying
stake
towards a
in this
mountain.
episode also got ramped up to world-ending threat.
Yeah. Inclusion of
Yeah, I don't know.
Ragnarok. Was the lava thing supposed to be Surtur?
It's designed
Uh,
to look a little bit like Surtur,
Probably.
so I assume that it. I don't know. I don't think it
But
is Surtur. I think it's just because the spear and his imagination. I don't know, but it's supposed to be. It's supposed to pull homage from Surtur in the same way that I think that the giant snow monster is supposed to be related to the frost giants or something like that. That's what I thought the homages they were making to Ragnarok were.
yeah, that's what I wrote. Both of them down was Frost Giant and Surtur. Whether or not that's what they were, I don't know. They don't really get named or anything. But they're
Okay.
Uh it's interesting that they're in Iceland, which is where Rourke found the Shepherd's Journal in the first one. It's an interesting way to have the
it's come
climax.
full circle.
Yeah. I wish they did
Yeah.
anything with that.
Well, that would have been a little good. Yeah.
If they found like one of their expedition vehicles out there left behind from the first expedition,
Oh, an old base camp or something.
Yeah.
that would be kind of cool.
Yeah, that would be pretty neat. I do like that Vinny is open-minded about how the spear could be causing the weather shifts. He's like, we've seen a lot of weird stuff,
Yeah.
Audrey. I do like that he's changed, quote unquote, over the course of their adventures.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah. Looking through my notes. Oh, that's we were touched on it. I think Ryder, you brought it up earlier about Abby being a fire lizard whale thing or whatever from lava, and comes out of the lava and bites the wolf's tail. It would have done far more damage.
Oh yeah. That dog doesn't have a tail anymore.
No.
There's a lot of plot armor even
And
even for dogs.
Its fur should be half burnt.
Yeah. It's a lot of plot armor
So
in this
that
this act.
was, yeah. Unless that's not a normal dog, and that's like Hela's guard dog or whatever.
I don't know. Like I said, they play homage to certain things, but Odin's first off, Odin's causing Ragnarok. Big already.
Odin's a man,
Yeah,
just a guy here.
it's very
And you
weird.
got the two crows or ravens or
Yeah,
whatever.
the two ravens that I guess attack Mole.
Well, the crows were smart enough to fly into the mansion and open the door, which didn't seem to be locked in the first place.
Yeah, I feel like he's
Bird from the
yeah.
like penguin goon.
Yeah, I don't know because if he had the spear and then the crows became hyper intelligent as a relation to that, it would make more sense. But because they're super highly intelligent beforehand, I'm just confused.
Yeah, they're just
I don't
trained
know then.
crows.
That's what took him a week. He needed a week to train the birds to open the door.
Oh, that could have
Oh,
been it.
I see. That makes sense. Could have been he could have been doing that for years, like 20-year planned heist, and he just the week ago he just committed like, all right, I'm last chance. The crows are trained for decades for this moment.
I'm not gonna live much longer, and I don't want to train new ones. So
Yeah.
Um, Unlike the Kräken in the first bit, this one actually explains a magical, I guess, visual sense of the spear changing size.
I
It
guess
was
well,
a
there is a
little
visual
confusing.
key for it. I don't understand how it works. Atlantean technology never worked like this in the first film.
No,
it can do whatever it
no.
wants.
Yeah, it's got pin particles. Let's go to
Yeah,
writer.
Uh, sure. I'll go with something small. Frost Giant instantly heals from Vinny blowing off his arm. Takes forever when his leg is blown off for some reason.
yeah, that's what I wrote. Then Vinny's like, "That's gonna take him a while," and I'm like, in my notes, "Why isn't he already getting back up?" And we don't see him again until Surtur, I guess we'll call him, shows up.
Yeah. An error I caught. I mean, I guess there's a percentage of possibility it could be a thing, but when they have like the plan of like, oh, we'll mix the snow onto Surtur and we'll like make lava pockets to get the frost giant, or like while they have the spirited effect. When the heck did they have the time or the resources for Vinny to plant all those explosives around that huge area while the spear is magically like pulsating out snow?
The leftovers from the expedition, obviously.
Oh, that were already set and fused?
Yeah, obviously, of course.
Obviously.
Obviously.
Talking
I have
about
another question.
stupid.
Yeah, yeah. I thought maybe I just remember the visuals wrong. Didn't the ice like grow towards Surtur? Because he didn't. I don't remember him detonating the bomb until after that.
No, the explosion kind of jabbed the ice on to him, I think.
Okay, okay,
Yeah, I
all
made
right.
like pockets,
Maybe I forgot he had. Maybe I missed the first
craters.
explosion while I was taking notes or something. It's not an impossibility.
They're
No,
just like
I
Milo's like,
was
I got an idea, and then Vinny blows a fuse and all these explosions go off. I'm like, how? How?
I do appreciate uh, Kida mourning the loss of her friends for the few seconds that she's allowed to before Mole gives her a thumbs up. In the same way, I guess I
Yeah.
appreciate Milo mourning her for the brief second he thought he lost her.
yeah, the characters care. They're not just forgotten about.
Yeah, they don't cut it.
Yeah,
They
it's
don't cut
also
away from
gross.
characters dying. Ryan.
Oh, it's also a little gross that Odin here changed Kitty's clothes. Freak.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, he used the magic of the spear to
I don't
materialize
know.
clothes.
Clothes beam.
Yeah, they should have shown that.
Exactly. Well, they didn't show him
No
dressing
one,
into
no
it
one
or
gets the reference, but
oh,
that's okay.
Clothes beam? No, I
Yes,
don't.
that is a thing from a from a show.
A show I've seen.
No, that's why I said no one here is going to get
Ah,
the
well.
reference.
There we go.
The audience maybe did. That's all that matters.
Ah, Crimson.
all right. I was not a fan of the conclusion here. We kind of touched on it, but Ragnarok's happening. The two guys are doing their thing with the spear. Fire's shooting into the sky. Ice is corrupting the earth. And I'm like, okay, this is like a Destiny thing. This is Ragnarok. And then Mal's like, all right, let's pin them against each other. And I'm just like, this they're like fighting like kids. Like they start fighting each other, and I kind of lost the serious nature of it. It
Oh, I
just felt goofy.
my serious nature of this film was
Yeah.
gone for a while. um,
Well, I mean, it's intending to be serious in this moment. It's not supposed to be jokey.
yeah.
But I was just like, this is dumb. This is dumb.
I think the only benefit
And
is
then Kida
that
grabs the spear. There's a big Valkyrie moment. Like, what am I watching?
it was cool to see her crash the mountain on the monsters. I did like that aesthetically.
That
My
was good.
issue is that
Yeah.
I don't know. They made it. I guess I needed to make it more clear. I guess that the monsters were mindless in order to break them up in the
Well,
way
I
that
guess
they
they
did.
are kind of like all fighting each other a bit in the lava pit, and Surtur's just kind of sitting in the lava, not doing anything.
Yeah. I don't know. And I think if we were to split these into episodes, this would be my least favorite episode.
Think I'm in agreement. It just feels the most away from the source material.
Yeah, like I said, if the entire season
Yeah.
was building to this episode could work. Like there could be breadcrumbs. Like we could see the guy who plays Odin in an earlier episode talking with Whitmore, helping to like with one of the mysteries, and then obviously over the course of the season he slowly loses his mind more and more, and then this is what it becomes. That would be cool. I could see this being a good climactic episode if they built to it right.
Yeah.
But I got nothing with
Or
that. It
if
stands.
Eric is in Iceland, he could have been a part of the expedition journey group with Rourke to go find the Shepherd's Journal, and he just stayed there.
Even better, what if he was left there,
Oh,
abandoned? That would give him enough reason, I
yeah,
think,
that
and
could be
motive.
played with some emotional stuff with Whitmore.
Yeah.
Stuff to play with here.
Yeah. But no.
But they didn't.
But they didn't. And so, yeah, I would agree. This is probably my least favorite episode. I think it still has my favorite badass moment, but it's not much else to go on with it.
Yeah. But hey, then they return back to Atlantis, where Kida takes the spear, and the geography changes in the city because unless it's at an angle, but it didn't look like that to me, that the orb or like the blue star orb that they have is above the center of the city, and that you walk down like stairs to get to kind of like from the first movie where they get in all their ships to fly off, or at the beginning of this where they come to say hi. Everyone had
Yeah.
that kind of
Isn't
big
it?
meeting opening
Yeah,
area.
isn't this the spot
When Kida
also?
puts the staff down, it shoots a. I was just gonna say she puts the staff down and it shoots a beam directly straight up into the orb, but the orb is not straight up above them.
I think it's supposed to be because in the first one, isn't that where they launched her father's like mask from too?
Yeah.
Yes, but it would have been on the outskirts of the orb. So like the orb would have been like at the top of the stairs kind of thing.
I mean, the orb could have moved because there was this like whole activation time. Took a while for things to happen. So the
Suppose
moment
it could.
I
spear
I
hit the
think it's
ground, the
if
orb
if
could
that's the
move
case, it could be
over it.
inconsistent with even the first film. I wouldn't necessarily pin that on this one. It's a minor thing.
Okay.
I don't have a huge issue with the orb potentially changing position.
Now, how do we feel about Atlantis no longer being underwater?
Bold decision.
Bold decision, Cotton.
I'm
Let's see
not
if it
really
pays off
a fan
for
of
him.
it. Exactly. Uh, if I guess that's a way to end a show for Atlantis is that Atlantis is now part of the world and not hidden. So I understand the reason to do it, but it because this was only 3 episodes made into a movie, it kind of just feels out of nowhere. It didn't feel like that's where we were heading.
Like I said, the only thing I have for it going feels like it going in that direction is Kita's arc, quote unquote. I don't think the arc is completed, but I do see the touchstones and pieces of it. So I like what they're trying to, what they're intending with it. But I obviously would have preferred a lot more from that arc specifically. I think Kida should have been the main character if they were going to commit to this being the ending.
It also seems like something she would consult the citizens to instead of just be like, all right, off we go
Exactly.
to the real world.
I agree. It wouldn't be a decision she makes arbitrarily either. She would consult the citizenry, which would be cool. Like if she was the main character, I would like to see her being the queen of Atlantis and making these decisions and trying to convince people why this might be a good idea despite their trepidation. It has that feeling of, or it should be evoking that feeling of Wakanda opening up its borders at the end of the first film. Something similar to that. They're going now out to help everyone just because they have the technology to do so. That
Yeah,
introduces later world building problems for the MCU, but that's not. This is not. This is different.
for the time being, yeah. Okay. How's everyone's notes looking for this last one? Two skimmers. Let's see. The ice giant shot a precise shot to freeze both plane engines. I think that was too lucky.
Eh,
For
it
then
felt like
how kind of incompetent his shooting is later.
It's like their plot armor just vanished for some reason. It was a little weird.
it kind of felt like it was a giant beam that encompassed the whole plane, but visually it kind of just froze the propellers.
I half see that. I don't think I got the whole plane.
Well, it didn't shoot two beams;
No.
shot one beam, so it would have to have split into two if that was the case, and that's not that doesn't make much sense. I think that just visually they just showed the engines being frozen instead of the whole plane.
I'm
Just lazy animating again.
That's
yeah
what I would chop it up to. Yeah.
yeah. Uh,
Okay.
I enjoyed
And then them
Mole's.
surviving the crash was
Yeah.
too much. Mole thing.
Yes, I enjoy Mole's comedic bits in this quote unquote episode. Him refusing to dig through the mountain is precarious, plot armorish, but it is funny, I think. Just being baby like, no, I don't want to, not wanting to dig. And then also the sled. So his comedic bits landed for me.
Other all of us die. No, we talked about there's a lot of mole focus on these 3 episodes slash movie, and I don't think we got to the point of Apple Dumpling Gang where they boosted the comedic character too far. I think they did find a sweet spot. Obviously, it's at the detriment of not having more screen time with other characters,
Yeah.
but I do think
Not
they did well with them.
not with Mole. I'm in agreement there. I think they did with Vinny.
He does get sidelined.
Oh,
He
that's not
doesn't
what I
get
meant.
many one-liners. Oh, okay.
I just meant throughout this, comparatively to the first movie, he has a quip for everything that occurs. I think
Oh,
it was too shoehorned in, and it did annoy me.
so he was less of a character and more of a caricature of himself, is what you're saying.
Yes.
I could see that argument because he doesn't get much screen time, and when he does, he is probably joking about something.
So yeah. Yes, this brings up a good question. If there's any character here on the remove character list.
The doctor.
Sweets,
Yeah.
sweetie, yeah,
Oh,
whatever.
Sweets?
Yeah, I think he's removable.
More so than
We
Cookie?
just I mean, I don't even really count him as a character in this.
Yeah,
He's
I
just like a
unfortunately I
background.
don't. Cookie's not in here enough for me to even count him as a character.
The radio lady,
Packard.
maybe Packard. But she is used to communicate about the West thing, so there's that.
That would
That
be
she's established as a
the one major
communication
thing she does would be
officer.
the one major thing we'd have to change if we're sticking to our arbitrary rule set.
Because it would be weird if any of the other characters kind of used
Got a
the
call or
radio.
anything.
Yeah, because that was kind of established to be her thing in the first one.
No, I think I'm with you guys on sweets then. You just have to
Yeah.
find a connection to why something in the West is connecting them.
Well, I mean, you could have like Whitmore be a friend of Sam or something. Like it doesn't need to be
That's true.
They already are
too
established to be
much.
friends, right? Like that's something that they say. Or am I thinking of something else?
Not with with
Okay,
sweets.
with Sweets. Yeah,
Sam and
it would
sweets are
just be
friends.
Whitmore being his friend. Yeah, that would be the change.
Two old guys. I'm sure it could be like old college pal or something. He
Yeah,
dropped out
do the
because of
Avatar Last Airbender thing of,
archaeology.
oh, don't you know? All old people know each other through the White Lotus or whatever. Have some like
So
big,
yeah, I'd say Sweets. Probably.
yeah.
Have some big what?
Hmm?
Right, you said have some big, and then you stopped.
Oh, I had no idea what I was saying. I stopped.
Oh,
I
lovely.
don't remember. So no, sorry. I don't remember what I was saying. I was saying something. I just don't remember what it was.
Yeah,
All right. Well, I guess with that, it sounds like sweets can be cut.
I think we are in agreement. Sorry, Sweets.
Bummer.
Poor fisherman. Atlantis rose up and definitely sunk one of the ships because there was two at the start of that,
Oh,
and there was only one at the
yes.
end.
No. They're rocking all over the place. They would have been capsized.
Well, fishing boats are actually really good at avoiding being capsized despite all the rockingness. But one of them definitely did because one of them disappears
Oh,
by
but
the end of
when
the
a
scene.
city comes out of the water, yeah.
Yeah, they definitely have a story to tell. That's for sure.
It's like when a fishing boat finds Godzilla's scales going through the water.
Yeah.
All right. Anybody have anything else for the film?
I do not.
No, we kind of talked about the broad stroke of how this isn't really an Atlantis movie.
Well,
It's in
Well,
the universe. That's
it's
pretty
it's
much
a
got
all.
movie.
character.
It's a movie connecting
Yeah,
stuff to Atlantean culture.
yeah. That's the bare bones. You got Kida, the Atlantean, and a couple Atlantean artifacts.
Yeah.
But the city of Atlantis is not really utilized whatsoever, except for the ending where they are part of the world now.
Also, Milo's Return, I think, is not the greatest title for what they made.
Well, he's returning to the overworld,
Eh,
because he's been in Atlantis.
eh,
No, I agree. It's not
weak.
very
It's
strong
weak
because
sauce.
yeah,
Weak
because it
sauce.
implies that this is like a Milo story. Like, oh,
Yeah.
Milo's returned.
And the closest we get to it being someone's
Milo,
story is Kita's.
yeah, it's like Atlantis, Kita's epiphany or something. I don't know. um, but Milo's return, yeah, just doesn't mesh.
Well, then,
But, you know,
with that, let us go into. Well, that's the coverage of the movie. Let's go into summaries and ratings. Um, let's start with Crimson.
all right, so as we talked about, this is a flawless film, objectively, on any metric you could ever ascribe to it. So I have to say this is the first objective 10. I don't even have to explain why, because you guys know. Subject, no. Enough of that bit. There's a lot of issues with this, and I think a core component of it is sprung from the fact that it was a TV show, and it wasn't meant to be a movie. So We have three separate storylines here that are all shortened character moments to fit within an episode. If this was all planned from the beginning, I'm sure they could string it along a little bit smoother. I do think they did a decent job with the like connection scenes of the
Trying to
communications
patchwork it all
lady
together.
bringing up, yeah, bringing up sweets in the South. I think that's fine. Uh, the going back to Whitmore's manor to send him back to Atlantis, and then the spear is gone. Fine. So the connectivity part, oh, it's okay. It's very weak. It is very distinctly three episodes, though. I feel like even if a viewer didn't know this fact, they'd be like, something's weird about this. This doesn't feel like a movie. Um, we talked about the world building taking hits. I think the biggest one being Atlantis is still a myth. No one believes it's real, yet in three episodes, two artifacts have been found regarding it already. uh, it's too much. The characters are still their characters. Vinny maybe cranked up a little bit with his one-liners, but I think that's due to his lack of screen time. Mole was well utilized. His power scaling, as mentioned, is cranked up with that. It's 15 miles over there on that mountain. Too much. Milo's intelligence wavers and his knowledge is questionable. I'm not at the level of Sprinks where it's like he just knows primarily Atlantean stuff. I do think he knows world history, but knowing this specific um, area for the tribes, I forgot what it was, but this I think it might be a little bit of a stretch. Kida still being the kind-hearted person, being very thoughtful about her impact and her family's impact on the world potentially. Her father's choice of keeping Atlantis in the dark, weighing on her. I think they do a decent job keeping that with her through the movie. We talked about Kida and Milo's relationship, and I think it's kind of underdeveloped. There's nothing. There's not that there's nothing here. There is something. It's just not to the level I would expect for a sequel. Um, in isolation, I think the animation would be fine for the time period, but because it is a sequel, I'm holding it to the standards of the original, which means this took a big hit in the visual animation. Even the sound effects weren't very good. During the uh, Surtur Frost Giant fight, they used dinosaur sound effects from Jurassic Park. They used the T Rex scream.
I thought
They
I
did.
heard that. Okay, I
They
wasn't
used it
crazy.
twice. They used it twice, and I'm like, okay, they couldn't even design their own monster screams. They used T Rex sound effects.
I'm fine. I'm fine
So
with them
I do.
yeah, I'm fine with them pulling like audio stuff for their stuff from like their files and stuff like that. But it was still funny that I also thought of like I heard that before. I just don't know where.
Certain levels to that, like movies with Wilhelm screams. I don't think anyone's going to complain. Oh, they stole Wilhelm scream. It's just kind of a thing. But in this, because everything does feel so cheap, it does feel like a shortcut where they didn't have to make their own monster sounds. Um, in terms of the three stories, we talked about how the Odin one is probably the weakest. Subjectively, my least favorite for enjoyment levels, but uh, it's pretty weak. I could kind of see the second one also being even weaker because of the reasoning behind what was the one spirit's name? Jakashi not killing Sam or taking his spirit or whatever he ended up doing with Ashmore or Ashton, and not blocking the cave entrance to this giant secret that he's been guarding for all this time. Doesn't make much sense at all. I think the strongest and tightest one is the first one, even though it is still questionable the Kräken's connection with uh, Edgar. So I think they all do have their issues with the plots. So I'm giving this an objective 4. I think it's heavily carried by the consistency with its characters, and that's mostly what it has going for it. I might be able to be talked down to a 3.5 potentially. Subjectively, this one was kind of hard to watch. I did fall asleep twice while watching it, so I had to rewind a couple bits.
Some meta bits. You also
Uh,
fell asleep this morning to trying to get through it.
I did do that. Um, so an aspect I was tired, but also it just wasn't really grabbing me. Um, there was some comedy in here, and I did get enjoyment out of like Mole, and just, the characters are still the same characters, so I did get the same level of enjoyment with that. But the world was just not interesting. I think one of my favorite things about Atlantis is like the World War I visual aesthetics, the actual city of Atlantis with the blue lights and the gray stonework. We talked about that in the first coverage, the visual aspect of it, which is severely lacking in this. I think the closest they really get to it is with the Kräken's green and like eh, the weight of it in the water, not physically weight, but just the presence of it. I think they just slightly capture some of the atmosphere of the first movie there. But everything else, it's just weak sauce. So I have this a 4.5. I didn't hate it, but I didn't enjoy it that much. So that's where I'm at.
Alrighty. Do I go next or does Ryder go next? Power the power. I'll go next. Save Ryder for the end. Let's see. I'll start with my objective. The voice acting talent is fine. Everyone sounds fine. No one seems bad. Even though it's not Michael J. Fox for casting, which is to me the voice of Milo. James Arnold Taylor does a fine voicing, just voice. Um, no one really had a big emotional voice piece or anything to really play with. It was just lines off of paper, so it's all just middle ground there. Um, the animation I think is bad. I don't like it. It's a lot of cut corners, a lot of stretching, continuity breaks, desyncs. So a bunch of that I think is bad. The uh, lighting is very bland, and the shadows are almost non-existent. There's a couple little bits where characters have shadows to them. Otherwise, they are flat and dull. Um, the cinematography is fine. Nothing really like blasted that I want. That was a really cool shot, or that was an abysmal shot. I think the only shot that was probably the worst is just the Kraken chasing the sub pods in the trench underwater, where everything was just stretching and changing sizes. It was a cool idea, but execution I think was pretty bad. Um, let's see. The writing is hit or miss. They explain things in like one area. It's like okay, they explained that pretty well. I get what's going on, but then there's like details that are missed that are like okay, how does this connect here that they don't explain? Um, and then like dialogue verbs is like was that or words that play off is that was that a joke usage or was that actually this character's explanation to what they think of the event or how much of this is serious being taken and how much is this the beat for the kid entertainment movie thing and it's a little confusing in that vein of the tone to come across in scenes for me. I think the music is bland and boring, especially compared to the first movie where it was very intense or very emotional beats or Atlantean like whimsy mystical kind of sense. This movie either has none at all or it's just boring music and forgettable. Um, the man, there's always stuff I don't touch on. Um, again, the details of like when does this take place could be explained one way or another, but it's not. Um, Milo and Kida's relationship could have been built on and bonded more, but it's not. Even being episodes by themselves kind of thing, I wish the episode by themselves structured more on the team that they're playing with or chosen for this episode and how they go about a situation versus more of the idea of what the mystery could be that's connected to Atlantean culture. And how they go about it, whether with the power of bullshit or not. Um, so it definitely could be worse. I could see that, but right now I'm resting at a 3.5 objectively. Um, because I also see the other way where you could re-edit. Oh, that was the other thing, editing. Um, they could edit things in between their continuity spacing for the animation to add in details or words to connect to other things, rather than feeling like this chunk can't be touched and we can only put things before or after it. So that also goes with the editing, which, ooh, I also forgot pacing. Pacing's terrible because of that. It's very chunky and uh, piece by piece block and not doesn't flow very well. I guess the one thing that does flow is like Kida's connection to how this is affecting Atlantis, how she's been a part of, but even still, it's not very strong. So 3.5 is where I rest. If this doesn't hint you to anything, my subjective, and Crimson pointed out how he fell asleep a bit at times. This movie's bland and boring. I'm sorry that people were like, "Oh no, they tried with the adventure, or the action, or the explosions with torpedoes and everything." It's just I don't. It doesn't matter to me. I didn't find it very entertaining. I think that just falls onto the editing and the pacing and the story and everything about it. That the first movie I think does far superiorly, to keep you engrossed into what's happening. I have this as a 2.5, and it's a movie I like never I think I know why I've never seen it again, and I don't remember stuff from this movie. It's just comparatively to the first one, it's so below it. Um, it not necessarily I'm going with I hate this movie, that it would like break characters from the first more so, or completely sideline or not care about things that happened before and completely give its own story for whatever artistic rep, example they want to go with whatever they're going with. But it's just not great. So with that, we'll go to writer.
All right. I will start with my subjective. I'll invert what you guys did. Um, the subjective, I didn't enjoy this one as much as I did the first one. For a lot of reasons, I think what we get is at best confusing. Wasn't really invested in the adventures. I was more confused. I was just wondering where it was happening, where the character arcs were going. I didn't know this was a TV show until I was told here on the podcast, but I kind of it felt like that from the get go, being like meshed together, like it was all rushed. Doesn't help. So I didn't enjoy myself as much as I wished I did. I think the only reason that this didn't tank beneath a 3 is because all the characters I still liked were here somewhat. Yes, there was some damage flung at them, but they managed to at least maintain a certain continuity with the characters, and I think that's what saved it for me. But I don't think it's on any part of the film's fault. I think it's a lot of in a weird way, it might be nostalgia for the first film. Why I like this film as much as I did. Um, and I'm not really breaking the mold here much. I'm at a 3.5 subjectively. Um, it would be lower if not for the characters. The characters are the reason I tolerated the film as much as I did. Um, and I just wish there was more for me to sink my teeth into overall. Um, Objectively, man, where do I even start? Let's do plot. The plot is awful. Pacing is atrocious, as Sprinks already stated. Plot often hurls damage into other characters by it's like giving Milo knowledge that he needs randomly to figure a certain thing out at a very specific time. And I'm fine with that being world history thing, but it's very plot related just to keep the story moving in a very particular direction. I just feel that from time to time a lot in this film. Um, I think the plot is intrinsically tied to poor world building as well, where in this one suddenly the Atlanteans are everywhere. The magic that they're finding is not clearly defined. We went from the sort of pseudo magic system in the sense of technology that we can't really understand outside of the undercity sun or whatever that could absorb people from the first one to kind of be a part of it. In this, it's full on unexplained magical incidences. Um, it's kind of like it's funny. It feels like the Scooby Gang suddenly dealing with real magical stuff without necessarily there needing to be a break in the continuity. Because it takes directly from the first film. Um, I think the tone of the film, which I guess is more, I guess would tie into more of the world building. It's a lot more cartoony. I didn't have the first one manages to maintain its stakes very well. There's no point where it felt super cartoony, where people are being knocked over like bowling pins. There's no cracking jokes when somebody's dying in a sub. You just hear people screaming. So this one's very, very much suffers from the rated G rating, I think, and also it is tonally a shift from it's a tonal shift from the first one in a way that I don't think benefits the film, and it makes it inconsistent in that regard. I think there is some damage done to characters. I don't think nothing necessarily destroys characters from the ground up. The foundations are all still here, and I think that's what keeps this from tanking again below a 3. I have been balancing between a 3.5 and a 4 the entire time, and I'm probably going to land on a 3.5. There is a lot of plot armor in this as well. Kind of Ashton could have killed everybody in the gang, but they all wake up inside of a cave where he's going to do some elaborate system to kill them all. Suffers from either the G rating or plot armor. Take your pick. In either case, the result is the same. It's a problem. And we jump up the stakes immediately in the third act, where they're suddenly having to stop a world-ending event, world-ending catastrophe. It's lucky the crystal kind of becomes a MacGuffin in that scene where Kida can suddenly control the spear. A lot of this is not set up. A lot of it's not paid off. Again, what I like of it's just the characters. I do like the bits we get of Milo and Kida's relationship. It's not at the forefront. It's not as very as Crimson might have wanted. It's not very in depth on their relationship. They don't do much more build up for it. They just kind of continue what we saw, and just we're left to presume it's an established relationship. And it's just them comforting each other from scene to scene, which I like. It takes a backseat to quote unquote the adventures going on. But again, comparing this to the first film, because I have to, it's a sequel as they've labeled it. I think it's not amazing. So yeah, I'm at a 3.5.
All right. Well, none of us were high on this movie.
No, 4.5 is the highest score.
Yep.
Thanks.
I unintentionally did the same thing. I think I gave my matched ratings for 3.5. Is that what I gave for Who Done It? I think so.
Who done it? I think we're both 3.5s.
Yeah. I didn't want to do that, but I did. Given what I think it deserves. Well, with that, gentlemen, shall I read us out?
I think so.
Alrighty. Audience, thank you for listening, whether it be Spotify, Amazon, Good Pods, iHeartRadio, Pocket Cast, and Samsung, and even to be on our visual side of things, be it YouTube or Rumble. Thank you for watching and listening there. Please feel free to like, comment, subscribe everywhere. Don't forget to tell us how much you hate our opinions or how much you love them. And as always, I've been a Geeky Writer.
I'm Commissioner Maroon.
And I'm Springs.
And we will catch you next time. Later, everybody.
Bye.
Toodaloo.